The minutes from the last meeting.
Can we get just a second till Terry can sit down? She wants to write down who makes the motion.
Oh,
Okay, minutes, Clifford?
Yes.
Well, and motion maker?
I'll make the motion to approve. Oh. I'll make a motion to approve last month's the February minutes.
February 12th.
February 12th. I'll second it.
moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, minutes we don't. Roll call. Okay, Mr. Chairman, the next one up is the macaroni request. I have Bernie Miller here for the applicant, and the applicant is on the Teams call. And so if there are questions directly for him, we will have access to it. I kind of have to watch the screens a little bit to make sure I get. I really don't have anything on this one. The board was at the site. There was really, at last month's meeting, there was no request for revisions or anything like that. The first step was, well, let's see the site and see where we go from there. So the board has done that, so now it's on the board to kind of do whatever you want to do. I guess Bernie, I don't know if Bernie has anything more to add or Matt does.
Not really. You know, I mean, I think there's a few things we can talk through if you want, but I don't, you know, I mean, we've talked out there and we explained it. You weren't at the last meeting, no. So if you had questions, I guess we could answer some of that if you want. It's up to you.
I think, well, again, site inspections really help.
Oh, definitely
As
did.
opposed to looking at a flat piece of paper, so I have no questions.
Want to start with me?
Sure.
Okay. As far as the house placement, sewer, some of those things, being out on the site, we're not encroaching anymore on the bluff. I mean, he had all the strings out there, and what we're doing, the one portion that concerns me is the boathouse down there, and seeing it and how it is, and the size of the bluff, and how a person would work with that and do anything there. Like I say, up on top, I can go with those setbacks, I can go with the road. What I'd like to see with the boathouse, I guess you would have the rest of the board, but my suggestion with the boathouse is to remove the boathouse and come in with some type of a way with a retaining wall to maintain it, you know, and not go any further back into it, and put a patio down there. You know, I know people like to store their water toys and that stuff, but there's ways where you can secure that down into the ground, you know, and put them into boxes and that kind of stuff. It's a big bank, you know, and getting down to it, and I don't know how you're going to be able to, you know, even from working off the ice side, there's going to be disturbances, I'm afraid, on that bank, and that's one thing we've always, at least I've always tried to maintain as a bluff before the fact. After the fact is a different thing, but I'm just concerned for the integrity of the bluff.
Would you be opposed to allowing the replacement except for what's over the water?
Yeah.
Basically, a reduction of the boathouse, just a flat reduction of the 2 feet or 3 feet that
Yeah.
sticks out over the lake.
But that doesn't leave you much of a building.
Doesn't leave much of the building, and how do you get in and out of it
Right.
to get around the front? But there might be the option for a side door, you know, limited to get access into it, but at least that would give them some storage down there. It gives them the option of going the other way.
Yeah, go either way. I guess I just don't want to see it mined back in 7-8 feet into that bank, you know. And I mean, it's trying to maintain the integrity of the bluff. You can have what's there and existing, but I personally don't want to see the bluff dug into more, or a drag line going down and dragging it up, and, you know.
Yeah.
But as far as what's up on top, I'm okay with that stuff.
Are you okay, I know the plan that we have shows a look, are you okay with a walkout? That one corner, I mean, it's maybe a couple of feet of excavation on that one corner.
Right.
But that's all there is.
But that's, and it's still not infringing any closer, is what I looked at. And I also looked at, I mean, I walked up and down the line when I was out there to the different homes, and we went down to the other end. It's a lot of house going in there, but there's a lot of houses in that area anyway, and there's gonna be more updates in there also. I mean, there's gonna be other people here that are gonna wanna do some of the same things. So it's not, in my mind, it's not hurting the integrity of that area there or the lake. My concern is the bluff.
So, a couple things, you know, with that hole already kind of there for that boathouse. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, you'd have to put a wall in there, and then kind of have this awkward little space in there, so. And I know that, I understand that this is, you know, because we're asking for variances, you can say, we want you to take away things that you automatically can have.
Yeah.
You know, because I think this would technically be allowed, right, to replace this.
Only that portion that is above or beyond the OHW.
Okay, so that part we can do, yes. So yeah, so I think that talking with Matt about some of these things, I mean, I think the house is way more important than that, but to have some latitude, you know, some latitude with that down there, you know, I think that I mean, I know Matt said it would be fine with whatever, you know, of course, it would be really nice to have something down there, to be able to utilize that lake just the way the shore is. But to me, I do think it's reasonable too, to be able to, I mean, have some type of a storage thing down there, because that's a long ways up and down to haul stuff. Maybe it ain't a boathouse that you can park a boat in, but maybe you can put other stuff in there, like fishing rods and life jackets and whatever, and then be able to still have that deck. So, I mean, if a person was able to, you know, keep some of it, that I think would be really nice.
And it being about 10 by 12, what's existing?
What's remaining?
Yeah.
Because even the way that bank comes down there, for anybody to utilize the lake or the lakeshore, you're about gonna have to be putting docks in the water along that edge, because there's no, how do you wanna say, beach area or anything like that, so you're still gonna, you know, basically put a stairways down to that area and then walk out onto a dock or some.
Yeah, and Matt may choose to say, you know what, let's just not put a boathouse and have that be a beach area.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And you could always do, I mean, if slope is all the way right down to the water, I didn't walk down there, so I don't know. You could do an above ground platform. You know, that.
Well, that's what I mean, a dock or whatever, platform or dock type scenario.
Well, yeah, a platform to get to your dock or whichever. There's a number of different ways I've seen. I agree. It's nice to give them some options.
Yep.
It's not, you can't do the boathouse, but if you do the boathouse, you just can't replace that one.
I guess I just don't want excavating into the bluff going back in, because by the time you do that, you start getting out like this, and the hole gets bigger and a little bit slides.
Yeah, no
Much
additional,
better.
yeah, no additional excavation.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's fair, I think.
There'll be a little bit, just because you gotta remove what's there, you're gonna end up taking outside the confines of the block.
Right, and you're gonna have to replace it to get the same size, you're still gonna need a foot or so on the outside of the block to
So there's gonna be that kind of, but it's gonna be minimal.
But if you go 10 feet back in, it's going to be
Yeah, it's gonna be more.
12, 13 feet back in to do the same thing to work.
On
it
this
out.
slope too, to do that, you
And it's
have
coming.
to come up to go back because the height requirements.
Right. That's where I'm at.
Bob?
I guess I wouldn't shadow much of his sediments too. I even thought of maybe a non-permanent structure, just a temporary structure. You buy those sheds at Menards or whatever, or he's a builder, he'd probably build his own, but something that's not actually fixed to the property, to the land itself. For as the boathouse. As far as the house thing, since I was skeptical before the site inspection, but after seeing the site inspection and seeing where the current house is, I'm a little bit concerned about how close to the road it is for snow removal. But it seems, talking to Matt, and it seems like he has a plan of where he's gonna put his snow. I don't want him pushing it across the township road, because that's illegal. And so he seems to have a plan for where he's gonna put his snow. So I guess my concerns were met out there or addressed out there at the site inspection.
Very good.
Just from a staff perspective, Bob, for us, it doesn't matter if it's permanent or not, it still has to meet whatever building out there. So even an 10 by 12, which doesn't require a permit to put, it still has to be anchored to the ground in some fashion so it doesn't move, go away. Or in this case, you don't think of it as it's not really going to go anywhere except into the lake, but we approach it the same way on the slope as we would on a bare lot, you know, in a residential subdivision. Not on a lake, it still has to meet building code, just certain sizes don't require permits. In this case, if they did if Matt did a platform down there and he sells it and somebody wants to put a shed, various conditions would state that would be okay. 'Cause I can see that happening too. Matt just, well, I'm just gonna put a platform, let somebody else deal with. They want a structure down there. That's fine, they can do that.
Yeah.
As long as the variance condition.
Yeah, I think the hard part is if you have to fill that back in, that's gonna be partly problematic. It's
Yeah.
probably easier
Very
to,
much.
it's probably easier just to, you know, to leave that hole that's in the hill right now.
Yep,
It's probably
landscape
less
rocket.
disturbance to kind of do that, so.
Landscape rocket or however.
Yeah.
To hold the bank. Yep.
Get a crazy landscaper to go down in there and place boulders.
I concur with her thoughts. However, I was thinking about that this morning, and I would really hate to see him pull that whole structure out of the boathouse, because I think you would get washed out that way. And I don't know what the bottom is, if there's a concrete slab in there now. I start thinking, what about a post hole footing, pretty much where they were, you know, no further into the encroachment, but then you could put somewhat of a shed with post holes like a
10-foot maximum height, that's a problem. And
The what?
It's a 10-foot maximum height.
Yeah.
But they could fill in the inside. They gotta raise it a
Because
little.
the way it sits now, it's gonna wash out once, if they don't do something like that. And I think the post holes, 3 foot on center, 4 foot on center, would actually give it a good embankment there to keep it from washing out.
Yeah, and that's where I think having a little latitude to figure out, you know, what to do, because, you know, I mean,
But this would give him his wish of a deck on top of that too.
Sure.
Sloping it out.
yeah,
I think it'd be actually better for the environment there too, to have something like that there than not.
Hey.
That's my thought on it.
I guess my thoughts are, where I'm coming from is I don't want them to go 10, 15 feet back into
No,
that
I
bank.
don't either.
You know, however they do it,
Yeah.
just try to stay within, you know, the confines of the boathouse now. We know they're gonna have to remove that boathouse, you know you're gonna have a foot or two excavation to get it out, to put another retaining wall up, to do what you're saying. I mean,
Would you?
I'm not hung up on that at all. I'm more hung up on going
Back.
10 feet back into it, into that bank and into the bluff.
And in this case, if they did a shed, if they wanted to replace the boathouse with another smaller boathouse, like say I measured it about 10 by 12, there's still the possibility to do a deck on top of that, because
Yeah.
you're looking at about 6 feet or 7 feet of elevation from lakeside to backside. And so, you know, if you want to, depending on how you want to do your steps and stairs, you can do your steps coming down right there, basically right onto the deck, and have another steps coming off the deck down next to the boathouse to get down to your dock. And so you can do all that right there in a very confined area, and it would probably work fairly well. You would actually have a little bit, I think the stairs would also help water not come right down into the back of the building. It would help deflect it sideways where it's not gonna run right down. But I think, there again, it's up to them, but the way the future steps, I mean, that's exactly what I see. And then, you know, go to either side of that with another steps coming off the deck. So to get to your lake shore, you come down the steps on top of the boathouse, and then you get to your shore, you come down another set of steps off of that deck. That would be, to me, a good way to go about it, but that's just one way.
yeah.
I'm thinking that pole barn system would actually beef up the rest of the land better too, though, because any shed on top of a slab would still push out the way that slope's sitting, I think.
Yeah.
I would really look into
Yeah,
some kind of anchoring of a.
Yeah, I think that, you know, I mean, Matt, and there's lots of different construction techniques, you know, I mean, if it was more accessible, maybe you just, you know, maybe you can, work with the foundation that's there, take the front off, you know, core fill it, maybe pour you know, pour a wall inside, make it a little smaller, beef it up, you know, I mean, there maybe is some ways, I don't even know, that you can do it that's the least invasive way to basically kind of leave it there. I mean, and
That's-
as much as you possibly
Encouraging that
can.
it stays though, because I think if that came out, because the way it's already caving in,
Yeah.
pull it out, it would be a mess.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be something you're gonna wanna do it at the right time of the year to deal with that boathouse, so that, you know, assuming it's fairly sandy,
Yeah,
you know, you don't wanna get everything, pull it up, you don't wanna then back in on it.
yeah, and I know Matt's working on another one. Matter of fact, the other day I was talking to him, he had to haul block out for another one on Sugar Lake, you know, so he's done them, knows and does them in the winter, and, you know, a lot of them that are tough to get to. So I see some of the stuff that's done, you know, in places like this, and you wonder how people ever did it and stuff, and I don't know. I've done a job in Seagull Lake on 2 islands for a church camp, a wilderness canoe base it's called, and they've got out in the middle of nowhere. There's a 200-foot suspension bridge, steel suspension bridge between 2 islands. It's like, what in the world did they get that thing? I mean, stuff can be done. I mean, when I say we build skyscrapers next to oceans, and it's just fine, you know, this can be done, but defining the parameters of what's allowed to provide some latitude, you know, because it's something that, there's a lot of different ways you can do it, and I think it can be done, you know, I think it can be done and make an improvement, getting it out of the water, you know, minimizing any excavation into the impact. You know, I think that would be I think that would be really good. It's just the key is, how do you write that motion?
Motion man can handle that.
Okay. Motion.
Well, we gotta go to motion, man. You might not agree with that.
Right. Paul?
You know, coming out to the site did help a lot. It changed my mind. One of the concerns I had originally that was real important was the neighbors. We did have quite a few neighbors write in, and going out there, it kind of eased my mind that really what the applicant is asking for is very reasonable. It's not beyond the boundaries of what we've done before, and I felt comfortable that the neighbors' concerns are addressed. The one that I do have, since we are increasing the roof surface some, and I noticed the house, I don't know what direction next to it, on the lower part, you know, there's all that land kind of just runs, that water runs right off his house. I'd like to see a stormwater management plan to somehow slow or divert some of that water, because if you looked at it now, it was all bare ground, and there's a direct flow right by that guy's house. So I would like to see something done to address or divert, slow down that water flow. And as far as the rest of it is concerned, I thought the house was a good design, good fit. And Dan pretty much explained my feelings on the boathouse very well. One other quick question. It sounded like the house from the originally submitted plan is just 2 feet.
Well, that's the
Well, it's a
next
different one.
Oh, next one, okay, all right. Thank you. Yeah, I'm fine with it. So.
Okay. Any more questions? All right.
And Paul, just for clarification, are you fine with staff reviewing that at the time of the application?
Yes, I am, yeah.
And Bernie and I have talked about it, you know, because that same concern, you're adding a lot of hard surface. You have the way a lot of that lot slopes, you have that issue of water coming in. Everything that's coming off that house is eventually going to find its way to the south and west. That bluff is, and so we've talked about different ways. We had one on Maple Lake where everything was guttered and it went down, you know, you basically buried a tile under the ground over the top of the slope. You don't have to bore it, and it outlets down near the bottom. You put it in a rock spillway, that kind of time to energy and set out anything that comes off the roof or the channel. So that's kind of what we've already talked about. Most of the concrete that can be sloped to go roadside. You know, a little bit of a ditch system there, so we'll have to have that go roadside.
And
Concrete go roadside, everything off the roof, probably tile, buried and have an outlet to some type of rock spillway down at the bottom.
Yeah, so you could potentially, like down where the septic tank is, if you're gonna try to, if you didn't do anything tile like that, you'd probably have to just have just a little bit of a berm and a way to catch some of that water. You know, but otherwise, I think if we capture the water from the roof, it's gonna make it better than the way it was before. Because it still had some building there. If we can capture that, you know, and not have that run over the slope and just dump out down below, then,
From the corner of the house to the septic, and is that gonna be a raised pressure bed or an in-ground?
that's in-ground. Well, it's on a little bit of a hill, so it's, you know, but it's mostly in the ground.
Is there a way to maybe slope everything, that portion that's between the house and the septic, just to have all that feedback to the road?
Yeah, it actually,
That way you're capturing everything off the driveway and sending it roadward, and then have left to deal with on this lot itself is gonna be, there really isn't much else to capture.
yeah, there's pretty much, I don't think it would be very hard to take, you know, from the garage, the back, the lake side of the garage towards the road, all that could basically go towards the road. So it's basically somewhere gonna be right of the lakeside edge of the drain field or whatever, somewhere in there. Portion of that's gonna be the only stuff that heads that way. Yeah, so I think, yeah, we've talked about that in the beginning and stuff. I think we have a pretty good plan to be able to make that happen without any issues. I mean, make an improvement over the way it is right now.
Yeah,
probably
for sure.
Even that, so.
Maybe to minimize excavation, run that alongside the stairs going down or something.
Yeah. Yeah, when we done that, yeah, I just remember in Maple Lake, they just, you know, they had to hand dig it. You know, I remember the guys called me when they were doing it. They're like, "Is this really necessary?" You know, tree roots and everything. And I'm like,
Yes, it is.
yeah, okay.
And there too, that way, you can wrap that, if you did it that way, you could wrap that excavation in with whatever you do.
Yeah.
You know, and that way, there's gonna be likely, even for the stormwater management plan, there's gonna need to be excavation at the bottom of that bluff, just, because you don't wanna just pile it and dump it directly in the lake. It needs to slow down, it needs big hill, it's going down a long ways, you need it to disperse some of that energy, so that can all be tied in with excavation of the work. Best option here, and there again, in this case, there's no great option, just because that it's a lot of fall, which means a lot of energy on a rain, any rain event.
Any rain.
And so we need that area to kind of disperse some of that energy and allow anything that was picked up off the roof or anywhere else to kind of settle out into that.
The other thing, just looking at the contours, a lot of times, you know, like if you have a 50-foot wide lot or whatever it is, and the contours are just parallel to the lake going straight down, all that water just goes this way. This way the water, it's not a concave, it's more of a convex slope, so that water actually, it actually fans out a little bit and goes that way, so it gets wider as it gets towards the bottom. So I think that's part of the reason probably it hasn't been a huge problem so far.
And there's enough trees there too that kind of help.
Yeah, everything's got to.
Hits a tree and moves side, you know,
Yeah.
it moves and it kind of spreads out a little bit better than, again, the same type of thing. If you have that direct parallel slope,
Yeah.
no trees.
Or the ones that are, you know, concave,
Yeah,
where
where it
it's
channels.
all going in like this. Them are the ones where you see them big 20-foot deep washouts going down into the lake, you know, so.
Okay, anything else, Barry? I hear a motion.
I'll try it. I'll make a motion to approve the variance request of section 155.026, 155.049 F, 2 and 3, 155.057, 155.090 C, Table 3, Chapter 155, Title 15, Land Usage Zoning of Wright County Code of Ordinance to allow replacement of an existing 572 square foot, one-story dwelling with a new dwelling that includes 1,125 square feet main level with a lookout basement and a 15 walkout basement and a 1,563 square foot modified second story, 528 square feet attached garage, 96 square foot entry porch, and a 55 square foot lakeside deck. New structure to be 87.7 feet from the ordinary high water mark, 10.8 feet from the property line, 18.4 feet from the edge of the road right-of-way, 15.2 feet from a type 4 septic system, and within the bluff. A variance requested for a new septic system 5 feet from the side and road property lines.
And actually, what we could do is,
With the variance for the boathouse,
we could just leave it.
I guess put in the motion that we're allowing for replacing of the existing boathouse with minimum impact to the bluff, but replacement of what is there. Yeah,
Only that portion of all the ownership.
yeah.
Do we want to put in, what comes out to what, 10 feet, 12, 10 by 12?
Roughly similar.
I guess I would say roughly 10 by 12. I don't want to hold them to exactly because,
Okay.
I mean, if you're losing part of the bluff and you end up 6 inches or a foot bigger,
Sure.
I don't want to have to go out there and tell them, okay, you got to remove that because it's not exactly.
Could we add something of retaining to the existing soils?
Well, the boathouse, if the boathouse isn't replaced and they're just gonna tear it down, they're gonna have to retain that soil, so it's kind of inferred. If you wanna put it that way, it could be either retaining wall or boat.
Yeah. I'm okay with it either way, just to maintain the integrity of the bank
Yes.
is what I'm concerned with.
Stormwater management plan.
Yeah, and then also, stormwater management plan at the time of permitting.
Okay,
I'll second that motion.
moved and seconded, all in favor?
I got one discussion. How about we make that, as per plan submitted, site plan marked exhibit A and building plan marked exhibit B with the noted exception for both.
Yep, that works.
Okay,
Good motion.
moved and seconded, all in favor?
Dan Vick, aye.
Paul, aye.
John, aye.
Dan Mall, aye.
Bob Newman, aye.
Thanks, Matt.
Are you number 2 also?
I don't know, I'm gonna sit here till they tell me to leave.
I do believe Miss Sutherland is.
And when he leaves, he's gonna be gone.
Yeah, I'll roll it,
Money on the wild first, you know.
I'll roll it for you. Yeah, that might not be a bad bet.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, this is item number 2, the Robert Sutherland request. It's similar to the previous request, that the board was out on the site. The only difference is, Mr. Miller called me right after the site inspection, sometime Friday afternoon. And it was noticed on the site plan that the house was drawn on the site plan at 20 feet wide, not the 22 feet wide that is on the plans. So what that does is it shrinks the side yard setbacks a little bit further. I have in the PowerPoint, I have the revised site plan here. So in this case, what he did once he found that out is he actually moved some stuff around a little bit and was able to reposition it a little bit to gain a little bit more from the property lines than the 9 feet. So in this site plan, you can see it's 9.3 from the closest corner, with the structure moved back a little bit to 82.9, and what was the original? 62.9 or 82.9?
62.
60. So it moved back just about 3 feet from the original plan. And then it's going to be 9 feet on the one side and 9.3 feet on the north side. What it also did is it changed the impervious and lot coverage numbers just a little bit, so there would be a slight reduction in what the allowance for, well, by moving it back, actually, the allowance for the patio actually went up just a little bit.
Yeah.
Because there's less driveway. 3 feet back at 20 feet wide or 22 feet wide for the garage or whatever the width of the driveway is, made it so that there's actually a little bit more allowance for sidewalks, patios, that kind of thing. But the roof surface actually is, I think, forced to be,
Yeah.
we're basically right at the 15%. There was, Mr. Miller, I don't think I have, no. That was the original, this is the revised. There is a stormwater management plan, and I think that's one of the big things that there's going to be talk about, so I'm going to go up to that now and then maybe have Mr. Miller explain.
Can I explain? Oh, too late. I was gonna explain a couple things on what I did to move
Well, I can
that.
do that too. I can throw that one up first because I have it.
Okay. Perfect. So, yeah, so I have, is it all right if I go?
Yes,
Yeah, they mentioned that when we were out there after, I think, pretty much after you guys had left, that, you know, that the house is measure what stake 20 feet, and I was like, So I back and looked at that, and it's like, we went through, I don't know how many sets of plans, back and forth, trying to figure out how to design a house originally. And so, I mean, we were back and forth, and so I have no idea how I messed that up. You know, I have no idea. I mean, I wish I would never have, but, so it's like, all right, so how can we, you know, so I dropped back in 22, now it's like, how can I, you know, how can we make up for this? What else can we do? So I talked to Scott Decker here, the one that reviews the septic for this. We discussed some of that. We know since we have to get a well variance, they also would like to have that, they also would have that well as far as possible. So I re-looked into the septic system, and technically this is a 1-bedroom. So before, what I had designed was actually almost twice as big as what would be required for a 1-bedroom. But the state code does not even count and acknowledge a 1-bedroom septic system. It starts at 2. So we actually, you know, I had a discussion with him about that. We actually shrunk that drain field down 60, 80 square feet and pulled that back, which pulled us a little further from the well, allowed us to pull that house back a little bit. So the one corner by the old garage there, that's still 10. So I just turned the house, instead of being parallel with that line, just a little bit. I mean, it took a little bit of playing around and pulling around and doing this and trying to get stuff to work, but that's basically the best I can get things to fit on there. And I think, you know, like the only corners that really are affected on are the 2 lakeside side yards, and they were at 10. Both of them were at 10 before, and now one's at 9.3, and the other one's 9. So by adding 2 feet, you know, pulling back 3 feet, you end up making 3/10 of a foot. I mean, it's about the best you could possibly do here. And again, the thing is, this is a 51 square feet increase on, you know, what was there with the garage in the house. You know what I mean? So, I mean, the house is basically a wash, and it's, you are all there. And so we then took this plan, you know, and worked with actually the Minnesota Department of Health. You know, they actually have certain things that are they're concerned about for their wells as far as pollution. So there's some finite details on which they're still trying to learn about, and what really counts on how and what counts for setbacks from like infiltration basins and rain gardens and all that. So we basically worked through some of this with them. A lot of this follows MPCA. A lot of this is from MPCA kind of best management practices too. And I can explain that. So basically you see that gray hatched out area. That's essentially where like an infiltration trench would be. I cannot run, so there's 2 different details down there, the one on the left. That's, so basically, you know, 2 different details. One is just generally the trench. right? And so we dig through the clay, down through the peat, put in some sand, put rock, put fabric, and put a little bit of sandy loam topsoil on top of it so it's a mobile surface. And then in some of these spots, there's like an inlet. That's more of the detail on the right, where it would actually just be rock to the surface. So the water, basically we want to get this water in here, we want to get it down to the water table and let it spread out, right? It would be different if we could run a tile through this, but if I run a tile through this, they say if you use a tile or a pipe to direct water to an infiltration basin, then it becomes polluted. I mean, it has a risk of being polluted. So, and it doesn't necessarily say if we don't use a pipe to run water to this. I mean, that's what it says. It says if you use a pipe to run water to it. But if I put a tile inside of this, they count that the same, even if the tile doesn't collect any water. So I can't run a tile in it, which is fine. The rock and the water will find its way. You know what I mean? Like a drain field. So, and there's still some question as far as, I mean, there's still a couple questions on exactly like these inlets where I have, where you could have water come into it where there's rock to the surface. I might have to do that without a pipe in it even, but they're not sure yet. They don't know the answer to it. But either way, this is designed that these trenches on the side, basically worked on a grading, there'll be just there'll be a shallow swale there. And the water basically is be running. I mean, if this trenches did not work, and let's just say the water had to flow over the ground, it would flow towards the lake.
Yeah.
Okay? And so, you know, hopefully we're gonna capture some of this water and be taking water out of this, and it's going to be, you know, drying effectively this whole area. You did mention about, you know, doing something to help the neighbors. I don't know that the neighbor to the south has an issue. I know the neighbor to the north is primarily the one with the issue. And I think that this is going to benefit the neighbors more probably than the southern ones, you know.
And it's important to note, if you look at those crossings, the goal is to basically connect sand underneath the tile with the sand that's underneath the peat. It's a way to get through the peat so it just doesn't hit the peat, soak up and sit there, and then more water just moves through the peat so slow that it creates these ponding areas. And it's a way to try to maybe, not moving it, but it's trying to get it down to the sand and to the water table so that it just mixes with the water table.
Finds its level.
Right, and so you're not looking at in a spot and increasing it. It's a you know, a 2-inch rain, you're getting an increase in the water table of
You won't
not
even
a tenth of an inch. You won't even notice it.
spreading it out
because
over
spreads
500 acres or whatever. Over
Similar
there.
to rain hitting a lake, basically. You know, you get a 2-inch rainfall, the lake level doesn't come up 2 inches.
Yeah.
And it spreads out, and that's the same theory here. Is it an absolute? Do we know it's absolutely going to work? No, we don't. But there's really, in this area, with the peat and there's no topography to direct water anywhere, we have to look at other options. And, tiling isn't going to work here. And the other thing is tiling, if the lake level comes up, that then works in reverse. The water comes backwards.
But I think on what you've got drawn here and what you're explaining and what you're looking at, it's a very good plan. And that's what we asked for, is a plan. The only question I would have is on that and the final landscape or the final grade, are we going to be increasing the height of the Sutherland's property compared to the neighbor to the north? Or will the grade stay relatively the same?
The Sutherland's house their floor has to come up.
Correct. I knew that, but I didn't know, are you going to bring the
how
grade
they
up?
do the grade, the way I drew the contours, which is, there's a lot of stuff going on here. It's hard to see. But basically on the north side of the house, I have that grade, that house, it's about 1.5 feet out of the ground on the north side of the house.
Yep.
So you imagine, almost like using your foundation as a retaining wall. Because if I started up where their floor was and I try to slope down and get a ditch, then come back up. We don't have that much width in there to make this slope unless we make it real steep. So if I can keep a 4-to-1 slope, then we have less erosion. That gets me down to our bottom of our ditch, or, you know, that we're trying to build this infiltration trench. And then there's room for it to come back up on the other side so the water doesn't just run straight on the neighbors.
Yep.
And so the only concern I have is, you know, we can draw up whatever we want, but the hard part is someone's gotta, you know, they actually have to physically build this. You know what I mean? And it has to be installed and graded right. And so, you know, I think that, you know, and it's not something that's normally enforced, you know what I mean? I mean, you normally always go out and do this, but somehow to, you know, just ensure that this happens this way, and I'm sure if they don't do it this way, the neighbors are going to let everyone know right away, but we just as soon not have that problem. Right. You know what I mean? We just as soon have it be taken care of and have them be happy. And I did forget, and Barry said, yeah, it's automatic, but I did forget to draw a silt fence, you know, around. So there'll be silt fence, you know, basically during construction wrapped all around the kind of that construction area.
That's a building permit requirement anyway, so it's, didn't need to, it's just, it's assumed and implied. Yeah, and so the one thing would be is, you know, what do you, something like this almost needs to be conditioned that if something isn't working, that some type of measure, that there's some type of enforceable measure with some teeth that we make sure that we try something else. So if this doesn't work, we would, you know, a condition on the variance to say, you know, if you maintain in perpetuity, it must function as designed. You know, that way, if something isn't working, obvious that, you know, grade wasn't done properly and it slopes backwards or to an area where the water's going around something and it ends up in a spot on the neighbors, that we have a little bit of teeth in the conditions that we can say, hey, we got to go back to them and we either what's right or we need to find another option so that it's not impactful to anybody else.
Okay. Bob, I think you,
Any for the public?
And I will apologize to anyone that's on the
No
Teams
public.
call. I do not have this in the PowerPoint presentation. I'm not hooked up to the screen, so I can't share this with them. So the only people that can see this are on the YouTube. So if anyone that's on the call wants to view this plan, when the meeting's over, just go onto the YouTube portion and skip ahead to where we're going over this, and you'll hear the conversation and see the drawing. By the time I got it, I didn't have the ability to PowerPoint. I just thought of that when I'm looking at the screen, it's showing what my screen is like. Well, anyone that's on the Teams call aren't seeing this.
Public.
yeah. Any comments from the public?
Do you have anybody on? Barry?
The Isaacsons, who are neighbors to the north, are on. Alan and Alita, if you have any comments, now's the time. Otherwise, the board will probably start their deliberation again.
This is Alan. We have no comments at this time.
Okay, thank you, Alan.
It looks good.
Any others? Okay. All right, Bob, we'll try again.
What concerned me last time, and at the site inspection, I talked with Bernie for quite a while, is on the septic. When we look at the elevations, there is 4 feet of elevation difference between your lake shore and the road. And this pressure bed, we're gonna dig through the peat and get to the sand, sounds more like an experiment to me than it does science. And I know Bernie has tried his best to convince me that a holding tank is not the way to go, that this pressurized bed returns the water to the ground. And when we look at the site when we're at the site inspection, you look at the topography, the last thing that you, as the applicant or the neighbors need is more water. I think the soils are saturated anytime it rains. And so the septic is a real big problem for me. I don't think that you or your neighbors need any more surface water or subsurface water. And then if you only got 4 feet of elevation between you and the lake, or between the road and the lake, you kind of wonder how purified that water would be even if it made it there. I'm concerned about the neighbors, that if this pressurized bed doesn't work, that they're going to end up with the mushy lawn, that water is going to seek to disperse, and it's going to go to the neighbor's way. I just have a lot of concerns with that septic system. And perhaps, Bernie, maybe you can say something now to reassure me that this is going to work 100% well. But I certainly have concerns with that. The house part, it does seem like you have put a lot of thought into the house. And I don't think I have a problem with the house at all being, it's actually probably an improvement from what's there, because you're back further from the lake. The setbacks that you have for your proposed house are very similar to what you have now. And so I don't have the problem with the setbacks, I don't have a problem with the house, but I do have some issues with the septic and adding more water, well water, to an area that doesn't need more water.
So this is, this, I would say you go back, 20 years, maybe 96 code. This type of system with the pretreatment would have been called a performance system. When you manipulate Mother Nature and dig through stuff, they started calling that originally an experimental system in the code, okay? And so you're kind of right. And then realtors and everybody, had a hard time selling houses that had experimental septic systems. So they just changed it to a name of a other type system, okay? Because they didn't really give it a name, they just said it's that other thing, right? And then their most recent code, they said, well, let's just give them all a number, okay? And so there's type 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, even type 5s. So the experimental, whether you call it experimental, other type systems, type 3 or 4 system, whatever you want to call this, we're forced. There's lots of places where people have a full-time residence already there. They live there. It's their investment. And their septic doesn't work. So then you're forced to okay, how do we fix this? And so we started. And I guess I won't take credit of being necessarily the first person to start doing this. It's been done in a number of places, and there's a number of concerns. And we started looking into how you do this over excavation. There's multiple different scenarios. So I'm going to say that this type of thing isn't necessarily going to work everywhere. Okay, so there's some key elements to this. On Maple Lake, for example, we dig through. If you dig through clay and get into nastier clay, okay, and you fill it all in with sand, you still need to maintain a separation from a water table. You may actually have, that water may actually have a slower time soaking out of there than you can put it in. There's just a lot of things to consider. When you have sand underneath or soil, there's ways to figure it out, and we did it on Lake Francis for the first time in not the first time, but one really extreme one. So we went through 6 feet of peat on Lake Francis, okay? Before we got to the ordinary high water. It was bone dry the entire way. You go all the way through that peat, and as soon as you got to the lake level, the water levels right up, comes right up level to the lake. okay? And how fast that water actually comes up is a good indication of how fast the water can move this way, right? And so we actually look at a number of things like that. And like this case, punch through that soil and you get to that lake level, the water instantly is up to the lake level, okay? You add water to that, it stays at the level. It doesn't change. It just stays at that level. You can add as much water as you want. It stays at that lake level. If you were in clay and you tried doing that, you know, you'd be able to fill that hole up. You know, if you didn't have sand underneath there, you know, that water would not be able, that water can't soak this way, you know, very fast. But in the sand, it just finds that level. And that's, I mean, we've done this, we've done this hundreds of times now. And I'm not gonna, and anybody that comes in here and says, oh, this works all the time, or this is the way you do every one of them, you know, every one has its own little differences that you have to look at. You know, there's some similar principles, but I think it's the type 3 system in, we deal with this a lot in Corona Township too. You actually have the ability, when Mother Nature gives you poor soils or really rocky soils, because really rocky soils don't treat water. So in some cases, it's like, well, we could just ignore it and put a drain field on it and the water will perk through and not get treated. Or, you know, like in this county, they say, you know, they're okay with doing these types of systems because it gives you an opportunity to make it better. So we take that rocky soil out, we put in mound sand that we know treats the water, and we know we can get consistent treatment. And we don't get penalized for it because we're actually making it. Mother Nature sometimes throws you a bunch of variables or some really crappy soil or wet soil or different situations. And this allows you to modify that and make it better to treat and to last longer and to work better. And so this system has a UV light at the end of the treatment. So once the treated water in this advanced treatment comes out of this system, it goes through an ultraviolet light. So basically it kills all the viruses and pathogens. And so the water's, you know, provided everything's working right, which this system requires a service provider and a contract with someone to come out every year and actually testing, sampling of the water. So it's like, this is like in other states, they don't require this, they don't require the sampling, they don't require, a lot of states still require service contract, but this state's pretty tough on that, and you have to prove every year that your system is actually treating.
Twice a year.
Yeah, and then, you know, when you pull samples out of these systems and look at the water that's coming out of it, it's cleaner than the lake. And so, in Illinois, a lot of places, Illinois, they used to discharge right into where I grew up, into the Fox River out of these systems. So you have this polluted brown river going down, and then you see these nice streams of treated water coming into it, you know. It was actually a good thing. In Arizona, Texas, the drier states, they irrigate their lawns with it after they're done, you know. So other places, other states, they're more advanced. There's even in Wisconsin some tax credits for recycling. They take this water, they plumb it back into the house and flush the toilets with it. You know, why would you go to the bathroom and drinking water? Like, does it make sense? You know, I just can't understand.
So kind of to get to Bob's point, you know, the holding tank portion is with these systems are not off the table. But that would be the last resort. And with monitoring twice a year, if anything is caught, anything isn't working, then that is still that last case scenario, that last ditch septic solution. So there, I definitely understand your thought process on it. Our office is very good at making sure that this stuff has been submitted. Our guys go through it every year to make sure that the agreements are still in place and that the test results are coming back and we're getting them. So they do keep a pretty good track on it. And the list of these that we have is growing substantially, but they still on top of them.
And what reaffirms my thought is that when you look at the neighbors going, whatever my map is, both to the south and to the north, all of them have holding tanks until they get about 2 or 3 houses away. Then the elevation comes back up. So then there's more elevation level, more percolation area, so to speak, vertically between them and the lake level, which then makes sense for me for a septic system. Being so close to the lake level, I'm still not totally convinced. And I think that's why you see the holding tanks to the neighbors both to the north and to the south for a ways.
Can I say something about that? The neighbors to the north and the south, in fact, the two south of us, those are only seasonal homes. The other houses that are farther down that have drain fields, those are year-round homes. So I don't know if that makes a difference to you or not.
Yeah, so these kind of systems are expensive, okay? And people typically don't put them on, I mean, some people do on a cabin that they use a lot, but sometimes they have no choice. But for a year-round residence, it makes, it's more, when you look at the numbers and look at how much it costs per gallon to treat versus pumping and all this over a life cycle cost, this is actually a cheaper system over time. This is actually proven what the EPA would rather have you do. They'd rather have you recycle your water within your watershed instead of pumping it out and taking it out of the watershed and sending it down the river. So, if these other people wanted to make it a year-round home, if they called the right person, they would suggest, that this would be some type of alternative how they could do it. As we get further down, we've done a number of very similar. I think I can't remember the names off the top of my head, but we just did one for Marty Lass. That was a variance that wasn't that long ago. We go the other way. There's 2 of them down there that we had done previously. One has a multi-flow, same type of system, and that actually is a cabin used. I don't know how they use it, but we've never seen them there. But they claim to use it. But anyways, so.
And I guess I also just kind of look at future use, probably for you and your husband living there year-round, maybe this system would work just fine. Perhaps the next owner would have lots and lots of friends, bring 2 more campers in there for the weekend, and next thing you know, you got 20, 30 people using this septic system. And
Well,
I just
keep this in the family.
want to make sure that the neighbors are protected so that they don't end up with they don't need any more water. That's just the bottom line. They just don't need any more water.
I
Okay,
appreciate some of the points that Bob brought up. Think a little bit, but I feel pretty good about being tested a couple times a year. So that gives me a little bit of comfort there, because I know a last resort you could do a holding tank if that system starts to fail. So I guess I'm okay with that. I wondered about, it's supposed to come up 3 feet. That's code, right?
For what?
I have to bring it up to elevation of the house. I'm switching.
Lowest floor elevation, lowest opening, crawl space is 4 feet above the highest known water.
You're proposing it to put right at that minimal height,
Yes.
right? Would it help for alleviating any possible water to the neighbor to the north if we lowered that to 2? As a board, we could do. Would that help you guys? I know you're putting it out of the ground, but that slope there, even with 1.5 feet.
I just want to
No,
make
this
sure
can't
we're
cut.
out of the water. We're tired of water in the cabin.
I'm sorry, I can't.
I'm sorry. I don't know if that's a good idea to lower you're talking about lowering the floor of the cabin?
Of the house.
Of the house, yeah. I don't know if we want to do that. We're low right now and we continually get water. I don't know if that's going to be the same level.
3 feet higher than.
Well, right now, your new cabin's 3 feet higher than your old one.
Right.
And he's talking about,
2 feet higher.
and I would say that if we brought this up to, yeah, it would still,
The amount
I
of
think-
water that would need to get to the trench is no different.
Yeah.
It really doesn't impact it very much.
No.
It lowers the slope maybe a little bit, but with the way you're gonna swale it, it really probably won't make much of a difference.
I think as far as being usable for the house, I think it's a little bit more usable for the house, and it allows, having 3 feet above instead of 4, it allows me to have a little bit better of a swale on the side to prevent, like a massive rain or something, running out of that onto the neighbors. So, I mean, that is helpful, because it is, and I think if you visualized where this floor has to be, you would agree that you're plenty high, and a foot, coming down a foot isn't gonna hurt you. But even if they say they approve it at 3 feet, that doesn't mean we can't go at 4 feet. You know what I mean? We can still decide that,
I
right?
It gives the
gotcha.
option.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's just
Be
like,
setting a minimum floor height,
Yeah,
not a
yeah.
maximum.
Okay,
So the highest recorded is 1054.38. So our standard, the state standard is 3 feet above. Or I don't know, it happened before I got here. So, it's a difference between 7.4 basically, or 10. House is 1055.8, and so you're at, it's about 2 feet. 1057.4, you're 1.5 to 2 feet. That lowest floor is gonna come up over what it is now. But if you envision it, you've been there a long time, have you
Yeah.
ever had water 1.5 feet up on the side of the house?
not in a foot and a half, no.
So that's what we're talking is, at 3 feet versus 4, it's 1.5 feet up from grade. So
Okay.
you'd have to have water. If you've had water up that high before, I would definitely say don't go 4 feet.
yeah,
In
there's
this
parts
case-
of the road underwater at that point, I think.
Yeah,
And I think
yeah.
that everybody's, there's a bigger problem if that's the case.
There's bigger issues. In that case, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You're gonna get water at some point.
Just like to give you as maximum swell to get that around to the front.
Yeah, I think that 3 feet, I think that is helpful.
Okay.
It reduces the amount of fill up around, and it gives it it's not getting there quite as fast, it's just a little bit of help.
Yeah.
I think it's not a great thing,
Yeah.
not a great help, but in this case, we're dealing with an extremely small lot, extremely tight sidelines. We need a little bit to help that,
That was my suggestion, let them go to the 3.
Like that one. Paul?
Yeah, having seen the site and see how low the area is and listening to Mr. Miller's plan on addressing the problem, I feel comfortable with how he has identified a large part of the drainage problem. And I feel comfortable with his solution on breaking through that peat to allow better flow and movement of water and creating those swales. I think it's important to note too that, keeping the neighbors' concerns in mind, if we do nothing, their problem's still gonna be there, I can guarantee that. Now, can we guarantee that this will absolutely solve it? No, but I think we also hopefully will put in some teeth where we can enforce that so they're not stuck in the same spot that they were with the other builder and feel hopeless. And I commend you and Mr. Miller for, taking this seriously and addressing the neighbor's concern. And personally, I feel pretty confident that this should go a long ways in alleviating a lot of the problems. So as far as the little slight setback adjustment and side backs, I don't have a problem with that. And I'm fine with the plan. I would go ahead and approve it.
Ken?
Last three stole all of my thunder, so I agree with everything that was, everybody's brought up some of the concerns, and I think we've talked through it well, and I'm with Paul. I mean, thank you for working through it and taking it serious. We made some suggestions and asked for drainage plan. I agree, normally we don't, but this, in my mind, was a unique property. And by working through this, I think it also, at least personally, it helped me as a board member of some of the things we can do in some of these small lots. So if we don't do a site inspection, we can use this, have this ability for the next person coming to alleviate some of our water problems. You know, and maybe we've required a lot of rain gardens. Maybe something like this in the future will help alleviate some of these rain gardens and those things. You know, it's another option.
They're all different, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess, thank you for going through the
Well, and
process.
it's good too to see it, as you said, for the board to see it. Usually,
Yep.
you know, it's okay, stormwater management plan at the time of application. Well, I can look at it, but you don't see it. You don't know that this now could be an option if we would have done.
Yeah.
Some of these where, especially in a situation like this, that is, you know, there are special circumstances here that we need to really dig into. I like doing it this way where the board gets to see it versus just leaving it on me, because the more eyes that can see it, take a look at it, put it in the memory bank, and let me something we want to use in the future. If it comes up, I can say, well, from what I know or what I can see or what I inspected at the site, it's working or not working, or I can at least come back with some feedback.
No matter what though, you're proposing a slope overall will be sloped to the front and out and away from your neighbors. Correct?
Yeah.
No matter if it's working, it probably will be better.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments? Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the request for variances regulated in section 155.003, 147, 155.026, 155.049, F2 and 3, 155.057, and 155.090, C, Table 3, and 155.102, Chapter. Oops.
Did you still?
Well, I was just wondering, do you want me to kind of paraphrase this, because there have been some changes with updates in the plan, and the revision to the site plan?
That would be helpful, thank you.
That way, we're not going back, oh, no, it's not this setback, it's that setback.
No, I appreciate that, please, go ahead.
So the motion would read that the board would approve the replacement of a 568 one-level dwelling, 33.5 feet from the ordinary high water mark, 7.7 and 8 feet from the side property lines, 60 square foot one-level dwelling with a 308 square foot loft that has 6 foot of headroom, a 330 square foot attached garage. Setbacks would be 62.9 feet from the ordinary high water mark, 9.3 feet and 9 feet from the property lines. Can't see this plan, and we're looking at 18.5 feet from the septic system. That is a type 4. The septic would be 5 feet from the property line and 2 feet from the right of way. I would, approval is as per revised plan, site plan submitted, Exhibit A, building plans, Exhibit B, stormwater management plan, exhibits. The condition of the stormwater management plan be that it be maintained in perpetuity, and if not functioning, must be corrected to avoid causing water to be directed onto the neighbors.
So noted, thank you.
Do I hear a second?
We get a motion on the floor.
We got a motion on the floor. I'll second it to get discussion going.
Okay,
Okay.
been
Now,
moved and seconded, discussion?
Is there any comment about the 3 to 4 foot?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, and add in that it can be placed 3 feet above the highest known instead of 4 if desired.
So noted.
yep, okay.
So that gives the option if they want.
Good motion.
Okay. In favor?
And Vic, aye?
Paul, aye.
John, aye.
And Mal, aye.
Bob Newman opposed.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thanks, Bob. It's been a while since I've had one of those. I love it.
Just get a thank you.
You haven't been here long enough to hear that. I love nodding you down in this hole. It shows that you listen to it, you stuck to your guns, this is what you believe. You didn't just, it's not a rubber stamp. I love it.
Thank you. Y'all have a great weekend.
Absolutely love it.
Thank you, Barry. Have a
Good to
good
see
trip.
you.
Next month, Friday.
After happens again, feel free. Don't feel like that. Don't feel like you have to follow the herd. No, it's good. You don't have to follow the herd.
You haven't been at Elgin Township's township meetings very often, then have you?
No, I haven't. I think I've only ever been to one or, no, I've been to one. I don't know if
We don't know, there's three of us and we don't know, nobody agrees.
Mixed
well,
for one
sometimes, you know, you
meeting.
get wrapped up in the flow of the meeting and you just, it's not that big a deal, I'll just go for it. I love it when you don't.
You're saying you're a hard one to get along with. No.
I'm in my third meeting and I'm already going against the flow.
Well, you'll find that you're not the only one at times.
We've all had our moments.
Oh, you don't need to run, Kurt. Have a seat.
Paul is gone yet.
Yeah.
Give your name to Terry.
For the record, you want to state your name?
I'm so hard to hear, I'm sorry. Your name?
State your name and-
Curtis Lund. That was hard.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is item number 3. It is a variance of the 1/40 requirements to allow the division of the 5-acre existing homestead off the existing 89-acre parcel. The house would have 33 feet on a public road, and then the remaining acreage would also have the same 33 feet. So this is a kind of a situation where a road dead ends, and actually, I don't remember the exact year, but the township purchased a 66 by 66 foot corner into this section in order to provide public road frontage to this property, otherwise it had 33 feet for the entire acreage.
Yeah,
And
that was
there's-
2004, Barry.
Yeah, I couldn't remember the
Yeah.
date. There were 4 houses here, and it's just, there's no road frontage. It's at the end of a dead-end road. You have Lake, Caroline, and, you know, part of the Clearwater River chain beyond that, so there's no place for the road really to go. And so the township actually purchased it. It's part of their road system, but most township right-of-ways are easements. This is actually owned by the township, the 66 by 66. And so what it has allowed is the 3 houses kind of come off of that. One's an older house on an easement, the other 2 take up the 66 foot on the eastern portion of the owned corner by the township. I should have actually blown that up. And so what's left is this 89 acres has 66 feet of frontage. And so the desire here is to break off the house on 5 acres, 33 feet, and then that western 33 feet would be the owned frontage for the remainder of the acre. Actually, it's 94 acres, 89 would be remaining. I did see the minutes from the township. There is, and they made a motion to approve it. The only comments I have.
This is the circle at the end of a township road situation.
It's not actually it could be a circle that the township maintains, but it's a 66-foot box. So, you know, it's just a box of 66 feet, 33 feet to this house, 33 feet to that house, and there's another house that's on an easement that's older, that's allowed to be there, and then the northern 66 feet is what this house is on with the 94 acres. So they just want to take the eastern 33 feet of that 66 with the house, to give the house its 33 feet of frontage, leaving 33 feet of frontage for the remaining 8.
So, just to clarify, the picture that's drawn on there between the blue line and the black line is 33 feet to get to the back side of the property.
Right.
Is what is what we're talking here. So the front of that property is 33 feet of a black line going back to the house.
Yep,
Right.
Okay.
exactly right.
Just,
And that
I should have
attaches to
had
that.
another slide that blew that up with just the house.
It's just 33 feet in that corner on the black line. Access.
Right.
Okay.
And that's just to attach to that 89 acres to get the legal.
So it's not landlocked. As far as dividing the house, this is the only way to do it. Shouldn't say that. I mean, an applicant has, you know, kids and stuff that live here. I mean, they could break it up in any number of ways, but in the end, you're gonna end up with the same thing. You're gonna have large acreage on 33 feet with a house, or, you know, rest of the large acreage on 33 feet with a different house, and you're still only 66 feet with this house. So, I mean, it's not that there aren't ways, but they all require this problem.
but the way the situation is already with the houses, that the existing houses and their placements, it's about the only way not to landlock anything back behind. I mean, it's one of those situations where the houses were built and now it's how do we get to the land and back, you know, without landlocking it?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Are most of these family?
Yes.
So this is all, these aren't
Well,
individual?
the 94 plus acres is family. That's one parcel now. My proposal was to split off the 5 where I would continue to live, and the 89 would go to the kids. So that's to give, so it's not landlocked.
Right, it's got to have access to it,
Right,
you know, from the road.
right.
Can I go first?
Okay,
Yeah.
you're a gopher.
Sorry, I had questions.
That's all right, that's all right. There's not much I can say now. I think that's the only way it can be done, and you can't landlock that. That's my,
Right.
Yeah, mine's pretty simple too. The applicant is entitled to a division. This is really the only option available, and you didn't create this problem, and I think it's a reasonable solution, and I can go along with the variance.
So the board can see that what I did is I did. So that's what we're talking is this line here is 66. Kind of illustrated. Up this line. Whatever ends up being 5 acres. Yeah, it has. We talked about it. Well, you could do more if you wanted. I mean, it's all wooded, so you're not limited to 5, or I mean, you know, 2.5. You can go up to 10 without a variance, but this is kind of what he was going with, and so I would say that if the board is fine with it, maybe give a little bit of leeway, so if he wants to, not 5 exact, but you can do an entitlement division according to the ordinance on a 33-foot strip, leaving 33 foot. Something similar to that for a motion. But I wanted to kind of zoom into it so you can see. I should have had this as a slide, but but that's really what that 66 feet is. That's what there is there left for this entire.
Okay, Bob?
I guess I don't have a problem with the proposal, I just have a couple of questions. First off is why is this blue square in the center a separate PID number?
That was an old house that was divided off, I believe, pre-ordinance. So on old pre-ordinance stuff, I believe, as long as it had an easement that existed prior to 1977, it's allowed as an existing division.
But that does not have,
It's called an old lot of record, is how we define it in our.
okay, but that does not have any road.
It does not have any actual owned frontage, but since the easement existed prior to 77, it's allowed to be that way, yeah.
Okay. And
Prior to that, I mean, there were, actually, looking back on our ordinance, you know, there were subdivision standards even prior to 78, so I don't, there's some stuff we have to look at a little bit deeper in our office as far as what's allowable and what's not. But the ordinance itself specifies that if the easement prior to August 1st, 1970, it's allowed to, it's called a pre-existing non-conforming lot of record. It's allowed to, if it didn't have a house on it and all those were in play, it'd be allowed to be built on now. House if it didn't have it.
And that was 1974 is when that.
Okay. And then my other question is, I guess I'm used to square pieces, and I was just wondering why the jog is on this lower part of his property too. Not that it has anything to do with his proposal today. It was just for my satisfaction.
Just that same type of thing. It's how these properties were sold back years ago. It's just, I couldn't tell you the reason why they did those little jogs like that, but that's why they did it. It looks like it was to accommodate a driveway that was coming into the house farther to the east, up by the lake.
Okay.
It looks like they have an own strip to the township road that does the same thing, and then once it crosses over into that next section, they needed a spot to get the driveway up, and then they kind of jogged it to follow the driveway back to their parcels back.
Okay.
That's what it looks like.
Okay, any other questions, comments?
No, I'm done.
Mike, the only concern I have is the 33 feet and looking at the property, and I'm looking towards the future is what I'm doing. And these houses here are existing, and is 33 feet enough for when, in the future, could be a long time, but is that enough area to get through to put lots along the lake and put in 5 or 6 homes and build a road? You don't know the future, and
No.
when we're changing things now and giving variances, should that be 66 feet? You know, should that be more? So when that time comes, it's there, it's on paper. You don't have to come back here. The boards haven't changed, or you know, the environment hasn't changed, because the way the county is going, everybody wants to be on a lake or a river or whatever, and there's 80 some acres there. You can split that into 5 or 6 lots. It looks like it's all, you know, higher ground or homes could
It's
be.
not, it's swamp.
It's all swamp?
It's all swamp, that old border that I own along the lake is all
Okay.
swamp.
Well, I guess those are some of my thoughts, is trying to think
And
Think
my
forward.
hopes would be it never is developed.
Yeah.
That's part of the goal of why I'm doing this.
Okay. I mean, it's,
And then, so I turned on the land use plan, and there's nothing, you know, there are lots developed to the west. Those are actually quite old, the 80s or 90s.
Yep.
And the rest of this is all planned to stay the way it is.
okay. Yeah, because we've, here as a board, we've given 33-foot access strips, so I mean, I'm okay with it.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve variance request of 155.026 and 155.048.4, C1 and 2, and 155.057, Chapter 155, Title 15, Land and Use Zoning of the Wright County Code of Ordinance to allow up to 10-acre entitlement division on a 33-foot access strip, leaving the remaining 89 acres with a 33-foot wide access to the public road.
I'll second that.
Okay, Barry?
Yes, make that, do it approximately 5 acres, that way, that's a little leeway, and then subject to deed restriction and survey. So you don't need to survey the 5 acres, get that into Terry, she'll do up a document that you sign. I believe you've done a few of those.
Okay.
Just get it done for your 5, get it to Terry, and then we'll do a document. And then once that's recorded, then you can transfer.
Okay.
So noted.
All right,
You gotta call the vote.
call the vote.
Dan Vick, aye.
Paul, aye.
John, aye.
Dan Mall, aye.
Bob Newman, aye.
Thank you much.
Have a great day.
That was
was I saying?
Yeah, you get the survey done, bring that in, and I'll have it back.
So I have to write some of my stuff down, because sometimes it's up here, but when it comes out, it doesn't come out.
Yeah, we don't do it.
I better get myself in one of them, motion man.
Well, hey, we'll know what we gotta do with some of these days, we gotta get ourselves into it, so in those hard meetings we got in.
With a lot of notation.
I just wonder if I should bring a cake with me when I come, you know?
Oh, man.
I still laugh, John. That one's gonna stick with me for the rest of my life.
At least you're here.
I can see it. I see John at a bar somewhere, and he yells out, "Motion man!"
Morning, gentlemen.
Give your name to Terry, please.
My name is Josh Malmquist.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this property is on Lake Martha. It's an 8,983 square foot back lot. The applicant owns the residential lot across the street. Since the platted road goes in between, they're not required to remain only common, so we did not include the house parcel as part of this because for all intents and purposes by state law, each sold separate. This lot has been through variance hearing in the past, quite a while ago, before the city sewer came through here. There's a board action that actually deemed a significant amount of these lots to be unbuildable. This is one of those lots, and when the survey comes up, you'll see why. And so this is the property as it looks from the aerial, and when you actually stick the ordinary high water mark on it, because that is a backwater area of Martha, but it is fully connected to the lake, it leaves roughly 8,900 square feet, or 9,000 square feet of actual area that's above OHW. So what we have is a proposal is a 24 by 33 detached garage that would be 6 feet from the road right of way and 58 feet from the ordinary high water mark of the lake. It's a fairly standard garage. We do have plans for it. That meets all of our other requirements for size, roof pitch, storage area, height limits. And so the only variances are the two setback variances from the road and from the water. The road has a couple of different ones. We'd like to list them both from the right of way and from the center line. The township did comment in, and that was their one comment. I did get a note from them, Josh, that they were expecting to see copies of the plans before they finalized.
Yep, I got notes that they changed their meeting minutes. They want to come back for final.
Yeah, so the township they approved the concept provided that the setback is at least 5 feet from the right of way to the side. And so that's why the 6 foot setback is for a 1 foot overhang. And so this meets what their conceptual approval was. He just hasn't brought the plans back to the township for the final approval from the township. And then we did also receive comments from a James Benson and Nate Johnson indicating they approved it, and another one from a Lon Boyd indicating he was not in favor of the variance. His indication is that the setback requirements are well too short of what the requirements are. And his indication was 5 foot difference, he think differently for the lake shore. That's all I have.
Well, since we don't have board approval yet, do we even act on this?
Well, I mean, that's up to the board. They gave the township gave concept approval. The applicant met the extra condition that the township board had set. Now, I know that the thing with it is there's nothing in statute even in our policies or in the ordinance that says the board has to wait for that response. It is, they have to meet with the township, and the township can provide a recommendation. Well, we also have had those where the township has said, we're not going to make a recommendation. So what do you do with those? So it's completely up to the board how you want to proceed. If you want to approve it, by all means, that's up to you. If you want to wait until the township provides something else formal, go well, that's within your prerogative, or you could say, we approve it, you know, subject to township's final formal approval.
And if I may make a comment on the township board meeting, the motion that was carried and the way the meeting months ended up were, there's a slight deviation to that. In the meeting, I had specifically asked if I needed to come back to them, and the message I was given was, as long as what I put forward to the county and for permit meets the 5-foot setback to the closest piece of the structure, that I didn't need to come back. However, the way the meeting minutes got written up, they said that they wanted to come back for final approval. I don't have an issue with that, but when I had left that meeting, they were fully in favor of everything that we had discussed at that point. I've updated the survey and the placement of the property, or the shed on the property, to meet their requirements. And the comment, they were hemming and hawing about where they wanted to have that placement. The message that I had given to them was, I've gone through 24 plus different orientations, size of the building, where it could go, where the driveway would be, trying to come up with the one that has the smallest impact on both sides of the variance. And the actual placement on the property is, I won't say completely irrelevant, but I'm completely flexible with that. So I'd originally gone to the board with it being 1 foot off of the setback, so that the sidewall and the soffit was basically on the right of way. They wanted the extra 5 feet for plow reasons, and if they ever had to do any construction, which then, okay, I'll push it back. The wording was no closer than 5 feet to the closest part, so that if you guys determined that you wanted to push it back further, you had that ability. If you wanted it closer to the road, then there would be a discrepancy between the two boards that we'd have to resolve.
Okay, thank you. All right, Paul, you're up.
One quick question, is the empty lot to, was it to your west? Is that a buildable lot, or has that been turned under?
No, we're gonna get the same request probably next meeting.
Okay. Okay.
I've actually been working with them for about 6 or 8 months, and they were survey work and stuff done, and working through it a little bit slower than Mr. Malmquist has, but their intention is to come to the board. But they need a variance for a garage as well. So they're
And
gonna come to the board.
that's why my survey that was shown actually includes a lot of the detail from his lot, because we ended up having the same survey done at the same time once we.
Yeah, one of my concerns was if that was going to be a buildable lot for a home.
No.
And it sounds like it won't be,
No,
so
it will
let's
not
leave
be.
it at.
They're actually probably in a worse situation than I am, and his variance is looking for a larger shed, so.
When we look at lake variances like this and setbacks, this is a unique one, and I'll explain. This is really, it's kind of a bay, it's kind of a swamp.
Yep.
So a lot of the criterias that we look for that are important that, for maintaining these setbacks, may be different in this case. So that's why I feel a little comfortable deviating from some of those, just so that, for precedent's sake. I'm comfortable with the lake setback. One of my concerns was the closeness to the road, but the township, if they're fine with it, I can live with it. It's their thing that they have to deal with. It is on a dead-end road. I did have a little concern that it's paved, but, if people slow down and you won't get the speed, so.
We've only got 2 properties further down the road,
Yeah.
so I've only got 2 neighbors that go. We do occasionally have people that come in, turn around and come back.
So some of the concerns that I would have being on a road are somewhat minimized. Really, the only concern I have is the closeness that you have to your one neighbor who has a dwelling. Can we move that over a little bit? Can we give him a little more room? Because we're at, what are we now at for a side setback there?
I'm 24.7 feet
Oh,
from the
okay,
edge
we're
of
good
property.
then.
Yeah, because I have the
There's no issue
wraparound
with
driveway there.
setbacks.
My mistake.
And actually, the survey lists it as a house, but his is actually a detached garage.
Okay,
It is.
no. So, as far as the size of your building, I think it's reasonable. I think how the property will be used is reasonable, so, I don't have any issues with the variance.
Okay. Ken?
Obviously, we've already been in tune to that there's another variance coming, but both of the properties that have buildings on them back there in those back lots, those are both garages?
Correct. Then there's actually, you got Hamilton Road there, and on the west side, there is actually a third shed already on that one, but that one doesn't have any lake area variances.
Because some of my thought was being much too close to the township road. And we create and have been creating these backlots for this purpose. You know, so I mean, it's kind of on us to say, if we were to say no to this, this is what we're developing these backlots for, is for garages or for storage sheds. We're not developing for houses. It's for sewers and for garages. So that was gonna be my other question is this also a sewer site, or do you have sewer on the, over by your?
Municipal.
Oh,
This is
okay, so
part of
that,
the- This is part of the Charlotte Martha, St. Michael
okay,
municipal.
so then that portion of it is we're not preserving it for sewer site. So the one thing that I was thinking, and I'll throw it out here for the board, can we move it back and give it 10 feet to the road? Just move it back 5 feet. 5 feet, I know we're going against what we always do. I mean, 100% I'm going against what but if we moved it back 5 feet, it gets it off that road, it gets it off of snow removal. We get heavy snows, the township's got to roll snow up against the side of that shed. It's close to that road, and I understand the township approved it, so you could say, well, the township approved it, let it go, but.
May I make one comment on that? Just to be completely clear, the 5 feet is from the right of way, so there's an additional, from the edge of the road, we're already about 25 feet total away from the actual edge of the paved road.
But like they said, if they would ever have to come in there and rebuild the road or anything like that, they're within 5 feet of your shed with heavy equipment.
Correct.
You know, rattling and knocking things off your walls or whatever. If you have 10 feet, it can be a little better.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I've driven into these lakes and these areas, and it's kind of like, wow, that is right there, you know. I guess that's kind of where I'm coming from, see what the rest of the board thinks. You know, it would bring it back down to 53 feet instead of 58.
If that is something that the board would do, staff would recommend you definitely articulate that in the motion, that this is why this is a different. It's more lagoon and bay than it is actual lake. It's not recreational. It's not something where
definitely.
you're going to see. You know,
Just,
definitely put that in there because.
And it was designed as a backlot for storage shed, not a home or anything like that.
Well, these were actually platted as buildable lots. It's just the board declared them because at the time before the city sewer came in, there wasn't room. And you couldn't put a sewer on.
That's what I've got for thoughts for right now.
I'm just gonna say, I'm comfortable that we define it, because this is a unique situation. And I would feel comfortable if we wanted to move it closer to the lake based on that.
Bob?
If that's the board's desire, maybe we should plan for a continuance and let the township review our thoughts, you know, so that they are not left out of the loop on planning to. Just bring this up next month.
I whatever guidance I need to do, I'm perfectly fine with. The township's verbiage was that it was to be no closer than 5 feet from the right of way, so they should be completely comfortable with moving it further back. The word that I was said was we care about the road here, so they understood what I was talking about with trying to keep the setback to the ordinary high water mark as large as possible. But that was their comment, is we understand that, but we care about the road here, so.
And so in a situation like this, Bob, I think this board would be going above and beyond what the township would even ask for. You'd be very, I think you'd be very, in a very safe position if you, I'm not against doing that, letting the township rehear it. But at the same time, I think with the way if the board was saying, well, we're fine with it or going even closer, then, well, yeah, I definitely would say, let's hear back from the township. In this case, the board would be going above and beyond what the township is requesting from their right. Put it as no closer than, not only is it not the option, I mean, it takes away the option of 6 feet. Now it's saying, well, be 11 feet or 10 or whichever you decide. You know, if you want to add 5 feet to it, we'll say 1 feet from the right. Like, oh man, 44 from the center line, which actually that's pretty similar to what you did with the Burns variance on Sylvia on a lot that they purchased. Very similar variance. That same thing that we did.
Well, my question would be, you mentioned that we have another one close by coming up. Would that recommendation affect that other piece of property?
Well, yeah, that I don't know. I mean, I have to, it's up to the applicant to apply for what they want. The only thing I can do is say, okay, this is what the board did with this one very recently, and I would taking that into it.
It does.
And all I can do is suggest to them, they can apply for whatever they want. I mean,
Right.
Mr. Malmquist was thinking a foot off the right of way, and, or, you know, again, he could have applied for 30 feet off. I don't control what they apply for, but I give them information when I have it.
And that's kind of, because that's why I asked the question if there was 2 storage sheds on each side, and
Right.
kind of were clued in that there may be another one coming. So, in my mind, the next one, we're kind of setting the parameters for it.
Right.
In my mind, we're setting the parameters for the neighbor.
Right.
You know, if he's got contours and it comes different, but we still can't be any closer than what we're setting the parameters here. You know, and kind of, if nothing else, he might have to go longer and narrower, but keep him
Based
at.
on this one, he might be another foot or 2 closer to the lake, just because the OH dips up a little farther here.
Yep, or he might have to narrow his shed up so he doesn't get closer to the lake.
Right.
I mean, for me, I'm kind of setting the parameters, giving him a little bit closer, pulling him back, but at the same token, the next one coming in, I'm gonna stick with the same parameters.
Yeah.
Which I've been in close conversation with him. The one opposition that Barry got in email, I think that is an individual that actually lives on Hamilton. I didn't include them. I talked to all the other neighbors ahead of time to make sure that they had input on what I was doing. I didn't realize that they would be close enough to be included in that conversation, but I've been talking with John quite a bit, so I can relay some of that information to him as well, so that he can make some more educated guidance before he comes.
All right. You.
Okay. I too thought that the 6 feet was just right there, and when you're building, it can vary a foot or so I was thinking, maybe we should go 7 or 8 just to be safe. I'm not opposed to the 10 he has, but I do want to take into consideration, he's coming off the side and parking that way instead of right off driving.
And that was done intentionally to try to bring it closer. I had gotten the guidance from Barry that I needed to be able to park a vehicle off of the right of way if I had a garage door. So that's a compromise that I've actually already made in this plan. I would prefer to be able to back a boat or anything else into it straight from the road.
Yeah.
But I'm already making that compromise.
I noticed that, and that's why with that, I'm not as opposed to being a little bit closer because he's coming off the road, so he's backing onto the road right away and causing a potential accident. But also 25 feet off of the edge of the road you are on that setback, so you're really 31 feet right now, proposing, from the edge of the existing road. You're on a dead-end road.
Correct.
So I would think if we just gave him a couple feet, even if we said 8 feet, because it does slope down 2 feet too there, so I don't know if that's gonna add some cost to your building, and it'll make it harder for him to get in there on that little curve. So every lot has a little difference, so maybe the next guy won't have that same situation, so I don't know if we can set a precedence 10 feet here and then say, well, because it does make that little driveway he's gonna propose in there, which is a good thing, a little tougher, because now he's gonna go longer at that angle. So I didn't want to.
I think I think an additional 3 feet versus 5 feet really is going to be irrelevant in that. I think so. Because I've got the 25 feet so that I made sure that I had enough room. I pushed it further to the west, just to make sure that I had enough room to articulate.
So you're fine with 10?
I'm fine with 10. Actually, Barry had given me some information too about the fact, there's a rule having to do with the average setback of your adjacent properties. And right now, the back of my detached garage is even with the front of my neighbors.
Okay.
So bringing it back a little bit further will actually bring the aesthetic of the road a little bit more in line together, which I think, from a long-term perspective, might be something to be desirable. The pine trees that I have, say
Yeah,
again?
that's perfect with me, and I think the rest of the board would be happy with 10 feet back. If you're willing for that,
I am, and then there's a couple pine trees there in the top, which would be the northwest corner of my shed too, that some of those will be able to be preserved if I move a little bit further back.
It sounds like it'll make us happy, and make your township happy at 10 feet, and that gives a little bit of variance when you're building, if it's moves up.
We're talking about 10 feet to the outside edge of the soffit, so it'd be 11 feet to sidewall with a 1-foot soffit, correct?
I would say 10 feet, the soffit one count on that would be
Okay,
fine.
10 feet to the sidewall.
You'd be gaining 4 feet.
Okay.
That arrangement.
Oh,
Because we don't, our setbacks aren't measured to the soffit unless it's more
I
than
agree.
2 feet, so.
Then the county was exact, I forget which one you made that. It's the heavy equipment. They wanted to make sure that the easement, the soffit wasn't. It was considered that.
Moving it along too, and then, here with the improvement or the approval from the township, but we could approve it here contingent that they approve it.
Okay.
okay. I hear a motion.
Paul's gonna go first. So just to be clarify this, we're gonna go from 6 feet to 10 feet.
Right.
Setback, okay, that's what we're talking.
That would make
I just wanted to.
that would make the lake setback 54 feet and the setback to the center line at 40. Want to change your number?
Yeah, so, oh, my pen.
That's what I,
54, and what was the other one, 42?
43
43.
and 10.
Gotta help them out here.
And what, and 10, yeah. Yeah, sorry, what kind of motion man am I here?
He's switching
All
a
right.
little bit.
I make a motion to approve the variance of section 155.026 and 155.049 and 155.057, chapter 155, title 15, land uses and zoning of Wright County Court of Ordinance to construct a 24 by 33 foot detached garage, 54 feet from the ordinary high water mark of the lake and 10 feet from the road right away and 43 feet from the center line. Is that it? All right.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded.
All those in favor?
All in favor?
Dan Vick, aye.
Paul, aye.
John, I.
Dan Mall, aye.
I'm Newman, I.
Are we still contingent on the township approving it though?
Well, the township still wants them to come back. You can just
Yeah.
tell the township that, hey,
We're
the county
okay.
went beyond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they'll appreciate that.
Yeah. That's my eye then, with the township. Yep.
If you do
So-
talk to the neighbor, and if he was looking at something bigger, I would tell him I would recommend.
I will. Yeah, I will. So just for my clarification, if I go to the township board, I update my survey to move it back, go back to the township board with those final plans, if they approve it, do I or do I need to come back?
No.
Okay, very good.
It is now approved at this distance.
Perfect.
And so for myself, if the township wants you to get your survey redrawn, go ahead.
Yep.
I wouldn't require it.
Okay, would I
Yeah,
need,
it's- whatever they want to see is what you got to provide, but
excellent.
I'm fine with it because it's,
Would I need to do that for a permit level? Well, we can talk about that later, because I respect their time, so. Thank you very much, gentlemen, appreciate it. Hope you have a wonderful week.
I would say just get their formal approval before you apply.
Yes, I'll do that for sure, sir.
My pen. Oh, man.
Get out of your way, so you can.
What do you need, a pen?
You got one in there? I don't want to bother you kids. Oh, that's okay. I probably won't.
Nothing else in here.
Thank you.
Hey, look at that.
I got one though.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Nobody down here doesn't have any
What you looking for?
pen.
I got
Oh,
one.
but he found one.
Yeah.
Got one? Okay.
I just seen if there was any extras around.
Yellow lines and arrows, they're everywhere.
You got this memorized yet?
No, not quite.
I brought my wife with me, and the realtor is.
That's fine.
That's acceptable.
Okay. Well, she thought she would sat out here for 2 hours and now it's gonna have to continue to sit, so. Where would you like us right here?
Yeah, sit in there.
All been standing together, right?
Yes, we have. Standing and sitting.
Okay, give your names, Terry, please.
I'm Rick Scott, this is my wife Jean.
John Holthouse with Keller Williams Realty.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the property is located in Marysville Township. What we're looking at is kind of a combination of adjustments and an entitlement division. And so the request is to add property from that tax parcel ending in 111300, attach it to the applicant's home site, and then also attach all of the parcel to the southwest and a portion of the parcel to the south. That's a larger parcel with a house on it, as one residential site of approximately 65 acres, leaving 23 acres to the north with an entitlement on it. The remaining land to the east will have one additional entitlement in addition to the existing house. I think I wrote it down here. Yeah, it's 87 acres. What's to the east, and that would have an entitlement, and it also includes that parcel in section 12 as part of that combined acreage. And so really what we're looking for is that division, the adding of to the homestead, to the home piece creates, by kind of default, it creates an entitlement on 23 acres, which exceeds the 10 requirement. And there is more than 2.5 acres of what we consider prime tillable farm field there, or farm soils. I don't have the soils map, but that is, it's primarily prime, and it does end up being more than 2.5 acres. It is kind of bisected by the swamp and other things, so it's not like it's a 10-acre square field or something like that. It is a little bit different. So we did get the minutes from the township, and as part of that, the township made a motion to approve to allow the change in lot lines as presented, and allow one building entitlement to be moved to PID 111400, and allow the other building entitlement to stay on 111300. No more building entitlements exist, and to clarify that the lot line adjustment and moving of entitlements are within Scott's own parcels, so it's not amongst different property owners. Mr. Scott owns all these parcels. And to acknowledge that access is private road known as 12th Street Southwest and Barton Avenue in section 11, and is owned by the property owner, and motion carried. So that's what they had decided at the township level. We do have, Mr. Scott did provide me with a road maintenance agreement as far as the maintenance of the road itself, with agreement with the other people that live off it. From a staff perspective, the one thing I would note is that this is listed on the Barton and 12th Street are listed on the township's public road map. And so by that definition, I haven't seen anything that vacates it. It is a public road, but it is privately maintained, and the board deals with these a lot. Provided that is the case, that it is a publicly owned road but privately maintained, the division is still allowable. If this were to be an absolutely fully private, not accessible to the public, well, that then connotations, or if it's not a cartway or some other way approved by the township, then we don't allow divisions on non-public roads. It's private driveways back to divisions it's still a landlocked parcel, so they potentially could be landlocked. So I preferred if the township would have made their motion that way, as a privately maintained road, and just left it at that, but they didn't. But I just wanted the board to be aware of kind of how this situation. There's a long history back in here with the roads, so and I know the the property owner's been trying to get some answers from the township as well about some of this, so. But that's the crux of the request, I really don't have a whole lot more to add.
Okay. Any other comments?
Guess I don't have any, unless you do, Rick.
Okay. All right, back to Dan.
I guess that was some of my thoughts on Barton. I know a little more history of it, but a parcel number ending in 400, then in theory is accessible off of Barton, which in theory is a public road. So I mean, we won't be landlocking anything or coming off of that other farm and having to have another strip or anything like that. I mean, they will have access off of a public.
Right. Now, where that additional entitlement gets used, and we've had discussions, and this is just the piece we're going to now and looking at now, but he's got ideas on how he wants to use that other entitlement. That may need to come back to the board.
Yeah.
If we don't know that, it's going to be up to the property owner to decide where and how he wants to use that, and then we'll decide, okay, what process do you need to use it that way?
Right.
So we're just going to leave that one the way it is for now and just proceed.
Yeah. So as far as what they're asking to do and putting these other parcels together in a 65-acre piece, and the 23 acres in the front, with the prime tillable up there, I'd have usually a real challenge with it, but being there's a swamp in the middle of it, there can't be 5 or 6 acres on each one of those two small fields. I'm okay with it, putting the building entitlement there. There's plenty of room there to put a house and sewer and that kind of thing. So I guess for what they're asking here for these lot line adjustments, and it's still leaving access to the bigger parcel, I'm okay.
Okay. Bob?
Well, normally, I guess when, just from the township level, when we see a piece like this, we see them breaking it apart into littler pieces rather than putting it together, so this is kind of new for me. But anyway, you're already the current owner of all of this, am I correct?
Yes.
And so I guess if they wanted to put it together, it's just a matter of which line goes with which PID part here. Like Dan says, the tillable land seems to be addressed with a bulk of it being in the 65-acre piece and the rest in the other one. So yeah, access looks good. All right. So.
All right. Dan?
I have no objections to it. I don't see any little bit of add. They answered it, so I'm fine with it.
Paul?
No, Dan said it real well. The only thing that I would like to see is some terminology in the motion that acknowledges that this is a public road, and that, I don't know if we want to mention the townships, Okay. Okay, yeah. And then that, in that one case of, was it 114200 and 111400, that they be combined under the same tax parcel? So those are the only two recommendations that I would have.
On 23, so.
Well, yeah, and that's how I was gonna.
Okay.
If it wasn't included, I was gonna add something about either administrative order or combines for that 65-acre piece. That way it's, you don't want more tax statements.
Right.
Well, we're used to getting a plethora of them now, so. I mean,
This will definitely help clean that up.
So you're talking about that 31-acre piece, is that what you're saying?
Well, it's, what we want to do is have you do auditors combine forms, so they'll combine, if without this form, this would be a new separate tax ID, that would be a new separate tax ID, so you'd get there'd be two new tax IDs. And so we'd just say, well, combine all of this under one tax ID.
Right, yes.
And so there'll be a condition that get done, or administrative orders be signed. I don't pretend to know people's situation and how mortgages and that kind of stuff work. Sometimes when there's mortgages, they can't do it.
Right.
If you don't have that issue, well, then they can all be combined. If you do have that issue, then we have to do a separate order that says these must be state-owned income. So.
Craig Winsman is all teed up for Monday to survey all this and write these legal descriptions as we have it drawn out,
Okay.
and as you're illustrating it right there.
Good.
So there'll be a new description for the 60, whatever it ends up being, 64, 65 acres. And then the legal description on the farmstead, the original farmstead will be rewritten because we're losing about 30 acres there. And then, of course, you would be rewriting the legal description for that 23 acre piece, for plus or minus whatever it ends up being up there.
Okay. Where are we at here?
We're done, I think.
We're done. Okay, do I hear a motion?
You want to help with all that, Mary?
Yeah, sure. A prospective motion could be for the board to approve the lot line adjustment to include that portion of tax parcel 111300, 111301, 111400, and a portion of 111400 to the existing house, totaling roughly 65 acres. That results in a 23-acre entitlement division on the northern portion of parcel ending in 111300. Subject to what I'll say is new legal descriptions for the entirety and an actual survey drawing of the 23 acres. Also subject to either administrative order or combined form for the 65 acres with the.
And it is along a public, privately maintained road.
It is along a public road, which is
Privately maintained. And I'll
So
make-
Barry, one other thing would be the deed restrictions to address, sign the entitlements.
Yes.
I'll second that motion.
Moved and seconded. Any other questions? All in favor?
Dan Vick, aye.
Paul, aye.
John, aye.
Dan Wall, aye.
Bob Newman, aye.
The last comment was just about that other entitlement being placed on the other,
The 400.
yeah, the form.
That's why you brought all that muscle with you, right? Well, you never know what questions are gonna come up.
Yeah. I've got a follow-up question. So once the survey work is done and legal descriptions are done, created by the surveyor, we bring that back to you,
Yeah.
and then that will get reviewed by your office, Barry?
Yeah, Terry or somebody else in
and
our
then,
office will do some documents that
Okay,
owners have to sign, and then we record those, and those are no fee as part of the hearing cost.
okay.
And then once those are done, then the transfer can take place.
Okay, because we'll need some type of documentation for the new buyers purchasing, because we're gonna be closing, we're looking at maybe the end of March here. And so they'll need some documentation for the title company and the mortgage company with this approval.
Our documents should suffice.
Okay. Would that be
It'll
on?
explain the combination of the 65, that these must remain owned in common. It'll explain that there's an entitlement on the 23 as it's described. It'll explain that what's left of 111400 and 122300 is, described as this with two entitlements, one of which being the existing. That's how it'll all be explained.
Clear as mud.
Yeah. Once the documents are done, it should clear it up some. I
Yeah.
know for us, when we see those, it's like, oh, good, it explains it all right there, so nice, I don't have to research back.
Sure,
to find out
sure.
what's going
Well, I'll just tell Craig if he has any questions on exactly
on.
what
He
it
can
is.
email me, he does all the time,
Yeah.
so.
And we can get the minutes of this meeting from.
Yep, they'll be sent.
So, awesome, excellent.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, it was
You
worth
wish
a
they all
2-hour
went
wait.
this fast?
I wish.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you
Ladies.
very much,
First, it
everybody.
took an hour and 10 minutes, so.
But who was timing them?
That comment about the biggest guy,
So our tech guy isn't here. Is that, got this all down pat now?
I think he's running it from his office.
Oh, okay.
Because on
There you go.
PNC, I guess Sean wanted to be able to, Sean sits in another room
Okay,
and runs that were buried in here.
okay.
So he wanted the tech guy to go back and forth, so he was in his office.
Gotcha.
Rely on it.
So Sean is what?
Well, no, for planning and zoning,
Oh, planning and
Sean,
zoning.
Sean is, doing Barry's
Yeah.
position in another room.
Oh,
Would you give your name to Terry, please?
Oh, yeah, my name is Nick Evans.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, what we have is a property that is in Buffalo Township, Rockford Township, and the city of St. Michael.
There you go.
And so this one's really, the way this whole parcel plays out is, I don't know, kind of fascinating to me. You don't see this very often. It has two entitlements on it currently. The kind of house that's kind of three-sided in blue there is an old lot of record, so that exists, doesn't take from the entitlements that exist. And so what the proposal is here is to create roughly a 2-acre entitlement division out of the tillable, which at this point, that's really what is there for road frontage. How to phrase this? The variance here is needed because there's a 76-foot strip in between the existing lot of record and where this proposed entitlement is going. Now, there was some discussion internally between the zoning administrator, myself, and other staff as to, well, the ordinance reads that when you do an entitlement division, the division needs to have either proper road frontage or an approved access strip. And the remainder needs to have the full frontage. In this case, the remainder does have frontage. It has frontage both to the north of the lot of record and frontage to the south of where the proposed division is. But it leaves kind of a weird 76-foot strip. And so the zoning administrator wanted to process this as one is an appeal of his, no, that's one coming up next week, as a variance of that road frontage requirement because there isn't 300 feet lot of record at this point. If it were butted right up against it, well, then we wouldn't need the variance. However, that is where the owner's drive is with, and he has intentions of building further back onto the peninsula, meeting all proper setback requirements, of course. But so that'll be his road, his access driveway for his house, and will be in between the two. And it's like I say, it's a 76-foot strip. The only kind of funky thing that 76 feet creates is that if at any point this is ever developed, you don't have 76-foot road right of ways, they're 60. So that is the one thing just to go with. If this property were to ever be developed, whoever develops it would have to find out what to do with that. We did receive approval from Buffalo Township, who was the only one we required to go to, due to that's where the access is. Buffalo Township, not Rockford Township has a very small piece, and say we do have full septic work up, so the site does have 2 septic sites, and it's otherwise a compliant division. It's 200 feet wide, within all of our normal ordinance requirements. That's all I got.
Okay, let's see, where are we at? Bob, are we back to you?
Yeah,
We do have, I will note, we do have a neighbor, Bruce Anderson. He is on the WebEx call, or the Teams call.
Okay,
Want to go to the neighbor first if he's going to comment?
yeah, you want to go to the neighbor?
Bruce, do you have any comments, or are you just going to listen in for now?
He fell asleep.
Yeah, I'm not getting a response from him. If he does, I'll keep watching if he does come on.
okay.
Just a second, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Evans, do you have anything more to add?
No, that's pretty much sums it up.
Sorry.
Barry, everything looks good.
Okay, thanks, Bruce.
Yep.
So this 76-foot piece is just for access for machinery type thing now, or is there
It's a
other
driveway.
purposes?
Originally, it was a path that was created many years ago by a fellow that owned the property. So I added some material to it to create a driveway that goes all the way back to the peninsula.
Okay. So, really, if you wanted to, you could, there's no real reason that that driveway has to be there. You could move your proposed division closer to the other building if you wanted to, and the driveway could go around would that be the south side?
We had thought about taking this proposed lot and putting it on the north of Joe and Terrence's property there. But that would soak up some really good farmland out there. Then we were thinking about moving it to the south, but then we get too close to Mr. Klatt's pit. Got to be 500 feet from there. We've improved the driveway there. We put some trees on it. So the driveway is pretty well established at this point. And moving his entitlement closer to, or the proposed entitlement closer to Joe and Terrence's place would pretty much wreck all the work that we did on the driveway.
It's just, like Barry says, is you hate to prove something now that could be an issue for down the road. But I guess, and you're the property owner of all this property, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yep.
So I guess, as a property owner, you have kind of at least the ability to put the division where you want it. Maybe it wouldn't be exactly where I would put it, but I guess that's okay where it's at.
Dan?
Okay. I don't want to sit and decide where you should put it, but was it never a thought of kind of squaring it up with that lot to the north, which would be straight up there?
Yeah.
It's 2.5 acres, right?
Yep.
That would be about fit that perfect.
Yeah, we thought about that, but that's really good farmland there.
It is?
Bobby Klatt farms all that. It's pretty stable. It doesn't have any low spots or anything like that.
Because there was mentioned something about is there a feedlot or something to the south?
Yeah, there's a manure basin to the south,
Yeah, manure base. How far does he have to stay from that?
500 feet.
But now does that take out the rest of
That
that?
takes up pretty much half of the distance between this division and the manure basin. About half of that is not usable for a house.
Yeah, and on the north side, Harvey lives on the other side of the street on the north side.
Yeah.
He's been there forever. He likes to duck hunt and all that. So if I put my son's house over there, that's probably gonna block Harvey's view of the landscape, and
It looks like it's tearing up a lot of nice land on this side is what I was saying. You just square it up easy over there and you wouldn't have needed us or nothing.
This is probably, from as far as the quality of farmland, there are some low spots in here. You can see the darker spots in the aerial in the back corner and in the front, almost the entire front. I mean, the driveway here likely is gonna be pretty far to the north because of the length of the little bit wetter area to the south end of this. So, I mean, there's kind of a little ridge that runs through diagonally across the middle of it, and that's where building and septic are likely to go just because it's not as low.
Is there how many more entitlements are on this property?
There's 2 total with no houses on it now, so this house plus 1.
Oh,
yeah, it'll
For
be.
this entitlement would take 1, there'd be 1 left
okay.
on the property.
Yeah, the idea is for me to put my final resting spot on that peninsula, right?
Yeah.
And to have a place for my son.
Well, that was my thought. Otherwise, I guess, much like Bob says, it's your property there. But I was just thinking it would save land in the future, but I guess I can't go with that either. So I'll pass it on.
Paul?
You answered my question on why you located the spot that you were at, and I really appreciate the fact that you're considering prime tillable land in it. But I do have one question and maybe more of a clarification. On this feedlot, are we is this proposed lot outside the 500 feet? So we're good there, because I wanted to make sure that we weren't going to inhibit the farmer by putting this, requiring him, you know, in the future to have to get a variance. So if that doesn't pose any problems to that farmer, I'm fine with it. So, thank you.
I work with Bobby Clatt. He's actually the fellow that farms all this land.
Okay.
I know what you know. All right. Dan?
I mean, I've been listening to what everybody says. I sit on planning and zoning. I'm the representative from here to planning and zoning. I look at this piece of property and what we're doing in Wright County right now and how things change. I've sat on this board and we had a father come in Clearwater Township about 4 years ago. And, you know, not this big of a piece of property, but we had to give him variances, and my son is gonna be, or by that time it was my daughter, and, you know, we're getting older, and da-da-da-da-da. Yep, he moved out, sold the place to somebody else, so everything they told us did not happen. It was completely different. So I look at this with a little different view. I sit on planning and zoning, I look at this water and this lake shore and for building buildable properties. And I look at the property that's already there, and yes, it is a field, and either side you go on, you're taking out prime soils, either way. I mean, you're taking out farmland. But with the 70-foot easement there for the road going back to 5 or 6 houses, I'm not saying you're doing that, but the potential is there. You can ask for it. You are in the Buffalo, St. Michael area where development is coming. You're on the east side of Wright County. Development is coming. There's value there. And we're not considering that here, but what I'm considering is this getting split up, rezoned, and 5, 6, 8, 10 houses putting in it. Now, if we split this off and give you a 70-foot easement back there, both of those 2 houses now have to take all the traffic, bus traffic, garbage traffic, going right beside their house all the time. It's just, you know, if it's developed, I'm looking down, if it's developed, you put 5 homes back there, it may have to be a township road or with a turnaround, or, and now you're putting 2 houses in there with a 75-foot easement, because on each side of it, you could put 2 other homes with road frontages, with the road going to the back. I mean, I'm not trying to plan this, but I can see this happening. So I don't want to create something down the road that planning and zoning or the county has to deal with, or you have to deal with because things change, or you build your home back there and it's, for whatever reason, a big home and you need more money, so I'm going to split it off and sell a couple of lots. You don't know the future, is I guess what I'm trying to say.
For a variance because your access strip exceeds the width that's allowed.
Right.
It's 76 feet.
We're just kind of creating problems. I mean, I agree with each one of my constituents up here that, you know, it's your land, you can ask for it, but you're here asking for a variance. You're asking for something, and we have to, or at least I have to consider that. And sitting on planning and zoning, I've seen so many of these fields and these things, I vote against them most of the time, but it's in the land use plan for development and that kind of stuff. I hate seeing farmland getting burned up for development, but it's happening, and especially along water. We just had one in Albion Township, 30-some acres. It's along a body of water is what I will call it. And they put in 3 lots because 2 houses are for sure going to get built and maybe 1 more, and it's all a family situation. But it's just like this, it's on a body of water. And I don't know that I'm comfortable giving a, you know, I would prefer do it administratively on the other side of the property. Either way, you're taking farm field.
It wouldn't have been 76 feet, but I planted trees last year.
Yeah.
And so I'm right on the edge of where the trees are
Yeah,
planted.
and I understand what your reasonings are, but I also, for me sitting here, I have to consider what you're asking for a variance and what that impacts potentially in the future.
And sorry, Mr. Chairman, I will note that I've been trying to remember to add in the land use district that properties are in staff report, and I just looked at the time. It is general land, so.
Oh, it is. It's
But we do have the statement in our ordinance, if it's shoreland especially suited for
Riparian.
residential development, it doesn't necessarily have to be in the plan in order to be developed.
I can't win that one on planning and zoning. It's riparian. I can't win. So this can all be developed, because it's shoreland. Trust me, I have the battle. I have that battle.
You get in that battle of, is it especially suited, and there's enough votes that say,
See,
well, it's shoreline, so
yeah,
yes, it is.
and that's what
It's
happened.
shoreline.
And that's what happened in Albion Township. It was ag, it's not in the land use plan. It's riparian, it's on water.
I was thinking that, without looking at that it was closer to St. Michael and closer to being annexed at some time. But you're saying now it's not zoned? It's all ag then? It's not,
Currently, it's in our land use plan for all ag. The portion that is actually in St. Michael isn't accessible by boat from St. Michael, although it does border the northern portion. If St. Michael develops something here, I mean, it could potentially get access into it is kind of, it's not unheard of, but it's not really common for cities to remove it. Cities like St. Michael or Otsego to reach out into a township. They were full townships that fully incorporated, so they're not as likely to reach out to a township to annex. Not saying it doesn't happen. We did have it between Otsego and Monticello, but it has happened, but it's not common.
question that's related to this, but not. We have a 76 foot right of way, and 66 is the code, right? What?
That's the requirement for an access.
What's just wrong with having two extra 5 feet on either side? I mean, what harm does that cause?
Well, here's the thing, if development were to ever come in, or the applicant decided he wanted to break off his house on 10 acres on a strip, well, now you're leaving the strips on either side, or just on one side. Now, what do you do with that piece? It's pretty much a useless 10-foot. You can't bring a tractor in it to till it, and so it becomes this leftover that has to be dealt with in some fashion. If a public road were to come here, same thing. Now you need developments based on our development standards. You need to meet the requirement, which is 66 feet. It's not 76 feet or at least 66. It is 60 feet.
But wouldn't the owner have the ability then to shave that off at that time and annex that onto one of the other, like the proposed division?
Since it requires board approval, no, they gotta come back to the board to do it.
Okay.
So here's what I will say from my standpoint and how I look at this. I would have approved this particular one administratively. We'll deal with the action strip whenever that piece comes up, if it ever comes up. Because by ordinance definition, it says, well, you need 300 feet. You need proper road frontage for the division and proper road frontage for the remainder. It doesn't say in every location that this thing touches a road, it has to have the required frontage. It just says the remainder has to have 300 feet. In this case, there's 2 spots. And so the zoning administrator and I disagree on it a little bit, but just to be honest with the board, that's where I sat. I probably would have approved this. But that's why I don't get paid big bucks.
But that's why it's coming, I mean, it did, so it's coming before here, so that's why I'm looking at the 76 feet, and I'm looking further down the road for development. I mean, I'm only one person, it can go however, but that's where my thoughts are. So.
How does the riparian, that's the first time I heard about that type of a thing. How does, I've heard of going from the ag to ag res, and going down the line, but.
See, in lack of a better word, it's the only loophole in our ordinance that you can rezone, is it's gotta be on our land use. Is that it's gotta be on, shoreland, I guess is the proper terminology.
And the way it's actually worded, it's shoreland specifically or especially suited for residential development. That is very much a judgment term, because
trust me,
I don't necessarily agree with things that came out of the planning commission, and neither does Dan, but that's that's why they have these votes and these boards. So.
Well, how many lots or how big are these lots that they can then?
I'm not the developer.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not the developer. They can come in, there's certain criteria, but I'm not the developer. There's a lot of property there.
Yeah. That's
Well,
why
you
I'm
can do
wondering.
AR plan unit development, and then you're looking at 6 per 40, so you're looking at somewhere in the neighborhoods of 10 in this particular case. 11? It's all dependent.
But, and if we and if you do that all, then everybody's going to be going through these properties that you didn't intend to happen, potentially.
Yes,
And these here two people are both gonna be here upset. And it may not be your son that owns them, it may not be your family that own them down the road.
I would think that if 50 years from now, if somebody comes in and wants to develop this whole thing, they'd probably change the road access or something to something even bigger or better, or with a monument and all that crazy stuff they do.
But I'm not a developer, but why would you do that, create a new road access when I have 70 feet right here and I can come in and I can make 2 properties next to both sides and I don't have to build a road, there's a road partially built here already for me. Now that's, you have to, you're creating a strip already. You're already somewhat planning for this development to happen. You're not planning it, you're not, and you never even probably had it in your mind. But sitting on this side of the table, we're seeing it all the time and we have to think about it.
Now, obviously, we're not our role here is not to plan this, but.
Correct.
But I still would like to see how we could help the applicant use his entitlement.
Yep.
So, can you lay out an option that would help? I understand what you're saying, and actually, it was an eye-opener for me.
I would personally,
Yeah.
you're taking up 2.5 acres of prime farmland where he is. I'd flip-flop it to the other side.
Okay, all right.
I mean, I go basically what Dan Vick was suggesting or asking. I would flip it to the other side, attach it just in another square or narrow strip, however you want to do it to get your acreage
Okay.
and
So
size.
basically what you're saying is do something that is conforming.
Yep, flip it over to the other side, come and talk to Barry
So
or,
it's either move this all the way and butt it up to that lot that's there, or do something else.
yeah,
Those are the options that are.
yep. That's my thought.
I'll clean it up a lot too.
How about just reducing that strip 10 feet to be something that would make strip compliant or a future road compliant?
That's really putting it right there then.
You still have the traffic issue going
Yeah.
through there.
You're still creating a strip. The strip is my issue is the strip.
Who owns that other property would probably want to.
Which, if you do it, if the division was on the north side of the lot of record, the neighbor that's there now still has to deal with that, only reducing it by 1. Because this property gets developed, that's where the road will likely go.
Wrong way.
Because that still allows 1 or 2 lots to the south that have lakeshore. That's where the road to get back to any other lakeshore lots is going to start. Whether it maintains the same path, that's the big thing.
But we have how many acres here? We don't really need a variance.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're creating a strip. Where that strip goes, a developer can come in later and put it right up against that feedlot and come right straight down the property line, go right around the water and make I'm not a developer. I'm just trying to not have a variance and create a strip.
You're forcing it otherwise, we're forcing it right there.
I agree. But that's me.
Is there a way I could put my son's lot somewhere further into the property so that he's not right on the highway? Is that possible?
North.
And there again, not without a variance, because no matter how you do it, an access strip here, unless you do it way back by where you're gonna build, it's going to be an access strip likely that would then require. You either need a variance to exceed the amount of tillable, or you need an access strip that's gonna put it in tillable, which isn't an allowable strip. The other one I can think of is doing a strip on the north end of the lot of record, and then just basically putting his house behind theirs is what, and when you mentioned that, so I was gonna thought, well, then that would be one way to do it, but,
We really like this location because it doesn't mess up the farmland on the north, which is really good farmland. We've got a couple areas here that are low, that have traditionally, it's been hard to grow the corn there.
Nick, you wouldn't mind speaking up a little bit?
Oh, yeah, we have
It's
a,
hard hearing you.
yeah, sorry about that. No, we have a couple areas on this proposed lot where it's low, and it's been hard to get corn to grow there regardless. We had a drain tile put in there to try to drain it, and it's been problematic. Just seems like that's going to be the least amount of impact on the farmland, to put it in a location where it's already two major spots within this proposed lot where the corn doesn't grow so good. You can kind of see it where those dark areas are. I wish I would have just reduced it to 66 feet when I put the road in, but then I went ahead and I put these nice trees and all that to make it look nice. And so when I measured for what it should be, I just got right on the edge of where the trees are. Guess I would, if I was a developer, I'd have known that, but I'm not, you know, so I'm just trying to create a lot.
Well, I'm kind of thinking, listening to the conversation, and I too, as from my question to Dan, did not understand this riparian thing with developers. I don't know if you'd like to kind of hold this off till next month and go back and talk to your family members and see what they think. And as you said, you know, you put in your son's house someplace, is this, work this out, or if you want to go ahead and take your chance now and...
I'd love to just be able to do it the way it's drawn. Both him and I have been out there. He's got a really cool view of where the swans hang out. It's not blocking the view of the lake from the gal that lives across the street. It's not blocking Harvey's view of the lake or of the landscape. It's away from Joe and Terrence's place, separated by the trees that I put in. I've got the driveway already established there.
My question for you is this, and I don't know how everybody's gonna vote, but if this was to fail, you won't have anything. Or if you continue it till next month, you can go back and think of some options. Because I have no idea how the vote's gonna go, but it hasn't been a lot of favorable conversation for you. You know, is there any other options? If you continue it, you don't have to come back or pay again. You continue it for a month, you can go home, talk it over, and come up with different options, or maybe do it, maybe you want to do more towards the back and do a 33-foot access strip off of the front corner up against Clatts or something, just come up along that edge and come in and do a lot there in the back. I don't know, there's options for you.
But that would be too close to Clatts manure pit though?
The driveway wouldn't be.
No.
You can put a driveway in and then get the house outside of the 500 feet.
That would mess up more farmland though. Where the driveway was put in for my place was existing, so.
And I understand.
that, yeah.
Yeah, I understand that, and it's gonna mess up more farmland. Any way you look at it, we're looking at getting into farmland. And you have that right in the ordinance to split off, 2.5 or 5 acres? 2.5?
2.5 of prime tillable farm soil.
Yeah, prime soils.
That's
I mean,
untilled.
you're right, we have nothing to say about that. So, I'm just, if this fails, you're back to ground zero. And if you go back and if you think about it, or try to come up with a different option, or you can take your chances, see how it goes. I have no idea how people are gonna vote. I know I'm not in favor.
I'm just gonna say, I don't really care for that action, creating a strip right now either.
I agree. I'm agreeing with Dan. We're creating a problem, down the road here.
Possible.
If I can reduce it somehow down to 66 feet, would that solve the problem?
We still have the access road, that's the problem.
Oh, I see.
We've made this an official way, and thus it creates a problem in the future of being able to develop this land. Am I correct on that, Dan?
Yeah.
And, you know, really, I think I definitely personally myself would want to see you somehow get your entitlement for your son and for you to live where you want to live in the future. But for me personally, the way this is set up, it's just not going to work for me. And I really encourage you, along with Dan, to go back and look at some other options. And like he said, the farmland, no matter how we cut it, it's going to affect farmland. It's just a matter of what would work for you. And I know that a lot of this might be confusing. You know, you're up here and all these options are coming to you, and you may, you know, Barry's a good source to kind of bounce some of this questions off later. But that's
What are my options?
to relay this out
Onto the north side?
or wherever. I mean, it's not for us to really decide, but
I can't put it any further south because of the manure pit.
You know, being it's in
you
your
could maybe go
family, though.
horizontal along that shoreline, you know, measure off, just spend some time with a ruler at 500 feet, make that circle, and then kind of just see what your options are. 500
feet from.
Yeah, now you remember, he said you have that driveway can go up next to the manure pit. That's not a problem. And then if you were to have the house located, you know, 500 feet away from that, then you're good to go.
You're suggesting something like that.
Is it possible to put his place back further on the peninsula? Is there a way to do that? I didn't even know that was even possible.
What's that?
Is there a way where I could put my son's lot back further to the east on the
We could-
property?
Yeah,
You
that would
could
be
consider an
different ways.
access strip, am I correct, Barry? Or,
How would I do that?
you know,
Access strip.
you know. I mean,
33 to 66 foot access strip back.
Are we creating another problem?
The
No, I don't
division
think so.
itself, including the access strip, cannot exceed 10 acres.
Okay, so looking at the drawing, in your opinion, what would be a logical place where I could put this lot back here that would make everybody
Where would you
happy?
prefer the lot?
Well,
I think that's where if we continue, and you can go back, and you do some talking, you talk with Barry, and look at the property as to where you can place houses, where you want to place your house, you know,
right, yeah, I already know where I want to place mine, and,
and then it's a matter of how close you want a neighbor to you.
I think you'll get a better result by just thinking it over. That's, you know,
okay.
good decisions that way by thinking it over. Now that you heard some of the concerns too.
Yeah, and the one thing that does kind of just pop up a little bit is, if we put two back on the peninsula, then we have to make sure, then we're looking at two access strips. Well, how do we almost need to know what both of those are gonna be? Because generally speaking, the zoning administrator requires each to have their own driveway on these access strips. So I mean, the same thing here. I mean, looking at, well, if you just butt it up to that existing lot of record up here, well, when he comes to build, which will be after his son, now he's got to put in a new driveway to get to his property because the zoning administrator isn't going to allow the driveway going across.
Where's the shed pit?
It's just
Right
not-
there, but this is the road.
and so it just gets a little bit tricky and complex to get two access strips back there. In the event that
Just a dwelling.
both houses end up being wanted to be divided on the
We don't
small.
want to create this because then you can.
We often see
So
that.
now
with,
we just
you
create
know,
an
mortgage
access to this
divisions or
parcel
that kind of
right
thing
here.
out of larger parcels. People don't, if they need a mortgage, they don't want to pay, you know, compeer rates, they want to pay bank rate versus ag land rates for their home loans. Want the house on a smaller acreage in order to, so they're not mortgaging the entire farm, they're just mortgaging. That's why this comes up, is we see this kind of stuff, and it happens, and if we don't prepare for it now, when it comes up, it gets a lot messier, because you know what, we could have foreseen this, and made this where it's a little bit
And
less
that's,
impactful.
and that's why it just make it easier to flip-flop it onto the other side of the property. Instead of living on the right side of the property, live on the left side of the property.
Paul's question is.
The other thing is that could be done, I don't know how your township,
Option, but he's gotta come up.
views things, but like in Albion Township, if you would put a full 66-foot wide
I can show them here.
road in there, If there's two, once there's two houses there, our township will, and you build it to township specifications,
Yeah, you still.
at least in Albion Township, then Albion Township takes over the road maintenance of it once two homes are built back there, so that's
Still a
something.
private road,
Well,
but.
that's a private road,
you
yeah, see,
contract
this
and
is-
they-
No, the township would take over ownership of the road.
Yeah.
And that's something there that would then spur
Yeah.
that development discussion. Well, now that the township's maintaining it, let's put some more lots out there, you know, it just, so it all kind of rolls.
That's true.
Yeah, it all kind of rolls.
But if you end up with a really, really long access road, you may want to consider that, is that, and I don't know what the rules are here, in, Buffalo Township, but,
Nick, just a couple, I mean, I don't want to dwell a lot of time on it, but there are a couple options here. And I just wanted, you can go back and think about, he's got one is you put an access here.
Okay.
And then you could take this parcel, turn it here. The house is located far enough from the pit.
Oh,
That's,
we have to be 200 feet from the lake.
That's what I was wondering about that one.
It's 200 foot from the environment.
It'd be easier if you just
Yeah,
went down
200
here
foot
and
so we wouldn't make that then, okay.
keep that as narrow as you want to get your 2.5 acres. Right.
So there's,
Well, I tell you what.
options.
There's
I
option
think-
there, yeah.
I think we continue it.
Yep.
And let them work with Barry with some options and reconfiguring. And, yes,
I get it.
I'll make a motion to continue this to the next, regular meeting, which is April 9th.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Dan Vick, aye.
Paul, aye.
John, aye.
Dan Mall, aye.
Bob Newman, aye.
What I'll do, Nate, is I'll do some mapping work probably on Monday, I don't think I'm gonna have time today. But I'll do some mapping work and put it out a few things,
Okay,
a couple of different scenarios and kind of what, how we regard this on.
okay.
We'll go from there.
All right, so it sounds like, I either not need to have his lot kind of consume my existing driveway and create a new driveway, or I need to move his lot to the north side. Is that what I'm hearing?
To a different location.
Okay,
I wouldn't say that's, to the north side is not the only option, but it gets complicated with other options.
Barry will work with you.
Yeah, he'll
He's
work
been
with
here.
you.
Barry will work with you.
I'll do what I can to try to figure out a few options.
it would be nice if I could get him back further into the property and not right on the road. That'd be cool.
Work with Barry.
Yeah, okay,
He'll be a good resource.
okay, all right, thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
He's been making faces at us, so he'll be a good resource.
With the mask, you can't see the face.
That's why he put the mask
That's why I
on.
put it back up.
I heard that though, Nick. If you moved it to the north, you wouldn't even need the board.
Right, yeah, okay. I'll talk to Joe and see what he thinks.
All right.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
I just opened it.
No, I figured I'm gonna get him.
Okay.
By the way, Dan,
All
thank
in
you very
favor?
much.
Aye.
That was very helpful. I appreciate it.
Well, see, yeah, you don't have that information. Like I said, that's the first time I heard that thing, you know.
I was on the right path, but I just didn't
We
know
had-
all the lines and,
We had one out here,
oh, you,
the southwest.
today's date on there?
I
is that
bought
you?
that thing, it was a 65-acre field, and it was over 200 feet of cattails to the water. They're calling repairing it, and we rezoned it.
short.